السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. كيف حالكم? How's everyone doing today? How are you all doing? Hope you guys are doing well, inshallah. Bismillah. We have an absolutely fantastic live lined up for you. Inshallah ta'ala. I've been really looking forward to this, to be honest with you. I'm not gonna lie. Looking forward to having some important discussions, especially with someone as well renowned as Sister Naima. Oh man, I can't find the remote for this freaking light. And it keeps bloody blinking every now and again. Right, you have to bear with that. It will go off in a second. I've started this a couple minutes early. Walaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi sultan, how you doing? Man said fart and start, I've started this a little bit early because I put a video up yesterday that I wanted to provide a little bit of clarity to. Okay? So yesterday I put a video regarding hijab, and the title of my video was "You Can't Force Her to Wear Hijab." Okay? That was the title of the video. And I need to be very clear on what I was talking about because I don't want to step into a territory that I'm not qualified to talk on. That is providing some type of Shari'i ruling or something, Dia, wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Shout out to Dia, she's my sister's Patreon. The point I was alluding to, I had just come off the back of a conversation with one of my clients, and he mentioned something that I've heard a lot of brothers mention in the past, and that is, I'm not happy with the way she dresses, but I'm going to let it go for now because I really like her or I really want to marry her. Oh, bro, this light. Oh, I'm going to do this. And I said to the brother, I said to him, you can't do that. You can't mislead the sister, and misleading it is, of roping her into a marriage under the pretense that you're okay, you're happy with the way she dresses, and then the moment, the novelty of her has worn off, you suddenly lay the law. And you say to her, right, now you need to wear hijab. She's going to be like, guarantee it. Why didn't you say this beforehand? You tricked me. Why didn't you express this beforehand? You fooled me. You duped me. You said you were okay. Or you said it wasn't that big a deal. Or you said something. And I reacted to a video by Ali Dawa, brother Ali Dawa. Shout out to you, Ali Dawa. Akhi, we need to have our discussion, inshallah. We went backwards and forwards, me and him on TikTok a few months ago. And we have unfinished conversation to take place. Brother Ali Dawa, I'm calling you out officially. Let's do this. Let's chop it up. I don't even need to come on your channel. Come on my channel. In case you're wondering if I'm clout chasing. Come on my channel. We'll have a discussion here, inshallah ta'ala. And the video that I reacted to, you can find it on my channel, was regards to polygyny. And one of the brothers in the audience, he made a statement. And his statement was, well, we try to hide our polygynous desires from our wives to be because we are scared that if we tell her before we marry her that we want to get married again, that she won't marry us in the first place. That is wrong. And you're a pussy. Point blank, period. If you don't have the cojones to say to the sister, yes, I intend, inshallah, at some point down the line to marry again. If you don't have the cojones to make that clear to her right off the rip, polygyny is not for you, my friend. Polygyny is not for you because you're going to have much more difficult problems once you get into polygyny. You need to make it eminently clear if the question is asked, brother, do you intend on getting married again? Of course. Taban, what do you think? Me stay with one wife? What are you talking about? But if you play the sneaky effort strategy, you remember that video I did the other day? No, alhamdulillah. Sister, one sister's enough for me, alhamdulillah, never. And then 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years down the road, you decide, oh, actually, I want to get married again, which is inevitable, by the way. Hence why I tell you, brothers, never sign these dud contracts of agreeing to not marry again. Simply say to the sister, I wish you on your merry way. If a sister is willing to risk losing you over this contract stipulation, this light's bothering me too much. I'm sorry, it's got to go. It's got to go. Pass. No pretty lights for tonight, guys. If that sister is willing to let you go over this stipulation, that's okay. It means, number one, she doesn't rate you like that. And it means, number two, this is the right move for you. Because once you get married and you have children with her, and then you want to get married again, and then she wants to get her khul from you, she wants to leave you because you had an agreement, guess who suffers the most? Who suffers the most? It's not you. Excuse me. It's not you. It's not her. It's the children. The children are the ones who suffer the most. They are the ones who suffer the most. So if you intend on pursuing polygyny, or at least entertaining the idea of polygyny at some point down the line, and you know it in your heart of hearts, then make it clear to her. Tell her, yes, sister, I do intend, inshallah ta'ala, if I'm capable, and I hope to be capable, of taking on another wife. If she accepts, great. If she doesn't, great as well. You've given her options. Now she can choose for herself. Now she can decide, okay, do I really want to consider going forward with this brother? Or she can say to herself, if she so wishes, you know what, polygyny is not for me, or whatever the case may be, I'm going to seek my fortunes elsewhere. And that's okay. That's fine. But stop being so scared, man. Honestly, stop being so scared. Right, let's find out where the sister is, inshallah. Sister Naima, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. We're on the stream. I've sent you the link. Join whenever you're ready, inshallah. We're waiting for you. Yo, that's my card on the flipping screen, bro. Don't worry, you can't use it. Okay. So as I was saying, the point of that video was for you as a brother to make it eminently clear to your wife-to-be that you are considering to marry. If she asks you, if the family asks you, to not lie, dodge, duck, dive. Equally on the hijab issue. If you're talking to a sister who's not wearing hijab, but you see other qualities in her and you see some type of potential, you need to make your position very clear. If hijab and correct clothing is something that is important to you, which it should be, if it's not, then you've got bigger issues. You need to make that clear. Now she has options. She can choose. Okay, this brother is saying that this is the way it has to be if I want to marry him. If she really rates you like that, she'll pattern up, believe me. If she doesn't, she'll go on her merry way, and that's fine. But now at least you avoid the problem of potentially marrying her, and then you can no longer tolerate the fact that other men are looking at her, her hair is out, she's all beautified, and this grates on you, which it will, it's inevitable, it will, especially as a Muslim man. But now she's going to turn her back around and say to you, oh, but you know, that's not what we agreed. You married me like this. And you're going to say to her, it's haram and so on. She's going to say to you, why didn't you make your position clear before I married you? Yes, I know it's haram and all the rest of it, but I don't care. That's what I want to do. Why didn't you make your position clear before I married you? So important, guys. You need to straighten this stuff out before you get married. Why? Because once children are involved, once again, it always circles back around to the same thing for me. Kids, children, they are the ones who suffer the most. They are the ones who suffer from our breakups. Not me, not you, them. They suffer the most. Children raised in single mother households in particular suffer more than those raised in single father households. But both are bad. Both are inferior to the nuclear home. Both are bad. Yes, it is true. Single mother households, children do worse off on all metrics. All metrics. Don't quote me. I'm quoting you Dr. Will Farrell's from Dr. Will Farrell's book, The Boy Crisis. On all metrics. Much better for you to make your position, make your intentions clear right off the bat. Sister, this is the way it's going to be. Are you on board or are you not? And then she can make her decision from there. If she says yes and she's okay, alhamdulillah, bismillah. If she says to you, no, brother, you know what? I know I should wear hijab, but it's not for me right now. That's okay as well. You say to her, no problem, sister. I wish you on your merry way and all the best. And you keep it moving. So without further ado, inshallah ta'ala, we're going to bring Sister Naima B. Robert on. Sister Naima B. Robert, she's been very active in the Muslim community over the past 15 years. I hope I'm correct in saying that her most famous work or her most well-known work is From My Sister's Lips. It's a book that even my mother has. Now, I haven't read that book, but I have read this book here, Show Up, which I believe is one of her most recent books. So without further ado, and to those of you in the chat, please keep it respectful, okay? We're Muslims. Let's have a nice discussion, keep it above board, especially seeing a sister Naima. She's not just any old sister. She's a sister who's well established in the community. So without further ado, Sister Naima, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. How are you, Brother Mahdi?
Alhamdulillah, very well. Lovely to have you here, sister.
Barakallahu feek. Thank you for inviting me.
Pleasure is mine. So, Sister Naima, tell me, how did you come across this world, this side of the internet, if you like?
Well, I am not sure how I came into the Manosphere. It was last year, and I started to be aware of the conversations that were taking place, mainly in the Red Pill community. So it's strange. So, I mean, where I am now is I'm very familiar with all the major players, you know, Kevin Samuels, Rolo Tomasi, Rich Cooper, Ryan Stone. You know, the conversations are obviously gathering momentum. So it's interesting for me to see these conversations leaking into the Muslim space and brothers now having conversations, because I think it is actually a real moment in the culture where men are kind of standing up to reclaim masculinity and refuse to apologize for being men. So it's definitely a moment in the culture. So yeah, I'm not sure how I got into it. I think I was introduced to it by a few different people, and then I started to kind of pay attention to the content. So yeah, here we are.
Alhamdulillah, good. And I know that, and I have to commend you actually, because you were sent my video, and it was for those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, I did a reaction video to one of Sister Naima's videos, and typically people get very offended whenever I do reaction videos to theirs. I understand I have a particular style, it can be quite, you know, forward and so on, but I have to commend you, you took it very well, so I appreciate that. And you watched the video. How did you feel after that video? Do you agree? Do you disagree? What points of contention did you have? I'm sure you got something, you know, a bone you want to pick, if you like.
Actually, I'll be honest. The biggest change in my own approach and my understanding of the issue since I recorded that video, which was before I knew about the Manosphere or Red Pill or anything, my biggest change now is what it really means to take on a single mother as a partner. For a man, especially a man who doesn't have children. I don't think I had really ever listened to men discussing their experience of being with a woman who has children. I hadn't paid attention to it because typically, you know, whenever we hear men saying they don't want ABC about women, it's because they're misogynist, because they're selfish, because they're X, Y, and Z. So when I started to hear non-Muslims, especially Rich Cooper, you know, he's got a bone to pick with single moms, right? He's got issues with this whole single mom thing. But I can't say that he's lying, because his main thing, no, I can't. Because his main thing is that if you marry or you date or you're going out with a single mom in their world, you will never be her number one. And that is facts. It's facts. And it has to be that way. You know what I mean? Like, because if you knew of a woman who had children and she's prepared to fling her children to the side and their concerns and their priorities to the side for you, that might even be a red flag, because it's like, oh, hold on a minute. A man rocks up and all of a sudden he's the center of your world and your children are, you know, no longer priority. That's a problem in and of itself. So I think my biggest evolution since I recorded that video is, my dear sisters, understanding your position in this marketplace. I remember speaking to a brother who was looking for a second wife, and he said, I said, how's the search going? He said, it's a buyer's market. I was like, okay. He said, I've got a wife. She's great. We have beautiful children. My life is good. I've got money. I can afford to be fussy. I can afford to wait and pick the one that exactly fits what I'm looking for, right? I get to choose. And it's a bitter pill to swallow. I don't want sisters to come after me, but sis, if you have been married, if you have children, if you're older, if you have anything else that kind of moves you away from the ideal that your ideal man is looking for, we may need to start becoming a bit more realistic in what we think we can get, you know. And like I said, it's not nice, but I've had this conversation with so many sisters that I know, because if I'm, you know, at the end of the day, if you're married before, twice married, 3 times married, you've got 3 children, you don't want to have any more kids, maybe, you know, your kids are going to obviously take up a lot of your time. I don't believe it serves you to have that long list of requirements. What I was trying to say in my video was have a standard for yourself. That was the main thing. You know, I won't go into that. We'll probably talk about that later. But I think that's probably my biggest evolution really was, you know, when you said the stuff about single moms, I didn't get triggered at all. Possibly after I had just recorded the video, if I had heard what you had to say, I would have been offended. But really, it doesn't serve us to be offended by reality. Facts is just facts, you know, and it's okay. You know, for everything that falls, there's a catcher. So for you to think that you have the same choices as a 22, 23-year-old who's never been married, you know, who's like fresh into the world, who's got her whole life ahead of her, you think as a 40-year-old that you're on par with her when it comes to this, because remember, these, unfortunately, when we're choosing partners in the way that we do as Muslims, it is checklist based. You know, it's sad because it means that you can't capture somebody with your charm, you know what I mean? Like, and make him overlook all the other things because, you know, you're so alluring and you're so wonderful and he's so bowled over by you. Unfortunately, if you're going to go into the space, you need to make sure that you check as many things off the brothers list as possible. So sisters saying, I don't cook, I don't clean, I need you to look after me financially completely, and yeah, I don't want to have any more kids, and yeah, I'm overweight, but da-da-da-da. Nah, sis, you're just shooting yourself in the foot. It's a buyer's market. That's the quote for today.
That's it. I mean, I've spoken at length about polygyny. I'm not sure how many of my videos you've seen on polygyny, but I've made my position quite clear when it comes to polygyny.
Yeah.
There's many different ways of doing polygyny. I've done a couple of different ways myself, and I had to learn the hard way that there is only one right way to do polygyny, and that is you as a man must have the leverage. She must be able to look at you and think, you know what, yeah, he's the man. If you're coming in on this whole misyar business and she says to you, oh brother, you know, I forsake my rights and so on and so forth, and no, none of that works. It doesn't work in the end. It's a buyer's market if you as a buyer can afford to buy in the first place. You see?
Yeah. You have to, I think as a man, I mean, I'm going to be very careful with my words because I've already had people on your channel saying, sister, don't talk. We don't take relationship advice from women. So I'm like, okay, I'm not going to talk too much. But as a man, your most powerful position is to be indispensable to your woman. Not because you've kind of disempowered her completely and she relies on you for absolutely everything, right? But because, like you said, you are the best thing in her life. You are her man, you know, in that way that women look for a man who makes her feel safe, who makes her feel like she's protected, like he's got her back, you know, that she is of him. She is one of his. And, you know, this whole thing is you know, I like what you say about, you know, being able to afford it. I think the reality is that many brothers can't.
That's
but
correct. Yes.
They still want to get married, and the women still want to get married. So, you know, it's a tough situation.
I have something to say on that. You see, okay, this misyar business in the first place, I was listening to a video by, his name's Mufti. He's a black American brother. MashaAllah, he's got some good stuff. Some brother sent me his videos. And he was given an explanation of how this whole misyar thing came about in the first place. And he mentioned one of the wives of Prophet ﷺ. There's a number of different narrations, but one narration says the Prophet ﷺ did divorce her. Another narration says he was about to divorce her. We don't know the reason. Al-Muhim, she said to him, O Messenger of Allah, don't divorce me. I give my night to Aisha. Right? And so this is where this whole thing of misyar came from. And then, you see, now what happens today is a lot of brothers say, look, it's halal. And yes, technically speaking, it is halal. The thing is, what you as a brother have to understand is she was willing to forsake her rights for who? Ahsan al-Khaliqeen. not أحسن الخالقين, the best of creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And I said this in my previous videos, and that is, bring me the most anti-polygynous, most feminist, leftist woman, Muslim woman on this planet. I guarantee you, she'll be the 100th wife of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Why? Because it's the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. What's the point that I'm getting to here is that wife of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and I forget her name. I think was it Sauda?
I forget her name too.
I forget her name. Al-Muhim, she knew this is who after the Prophet.
That's the best of the best. Yeah.
Where am I going after that? Right? So you can't make this blank slate equality. Now, you as a man coming in, you want to take on another woman. You have to be the man. Why?
The best of
because
the best that you can get.
Right. Having 2+ wives is an above average outcome. If you as a man want an above average outcome, you must be above average. Period.
100%.
Or forget about it. Because why? And again, for me, it always comes back down to the kids. You're going to take on another wife and you're not the man, so to speak. Guess what's going to happen? First wife's going to become disenchanted. And then you had 2, 3, 4, 5 children with her. She's going to get her khul because she's disenchanted, break the family home. Who suffers? Me? You? No, the kids. The kids suffer the most.
We've seen too much of that. We've seen too much of that. Really, we have seen too much of that. So yeah, I agree with you.
Let me just bring up the super chat real quick. Barbie, appreciate the 50. I'm not sure what that is, but Jazakallah khair, akhi. Big fan of both people here. Refreshing conversation. Bravo on both sides for genuinely engaging with each other. Desperately needed in our community. Yeah, and hats off to you, Naima. I salute you actually, because you've approached this very level-headed. So let's continue, Sister Naima, because I remember briefly in our discussion when you came on the other day, you mentioned something and I caught it, but I thought let's save that for next time. And that was, you said, once a woman experiences a certain level in terms of a man, she can't go back. Something to that effect. Can you build that out for us, please?
Okay. Bismillah. One of the things that I've sort of experienced in my life is the level of stability that first marriage where you had your first children and you built together, right? You'll find very often that those marriages, even if they were arranged marriages, even if they were like sunnah, like a couple of sit downs and that kind of thing. So it wasn't like a huge, big love affair attraction or anything like that. It was, we're getting in this fi sabilillah and we're in it. And you're both young. He may not have that much to his name, whatever, but you guys build together. I have seen in just observing the community, because remember, I'm an old head, right? So I'm from the 90s. So I'm Gen X. So I've seen now those 10, 15-year marriages, which lasted because you built something together. And this is something I want to say as to my sisters out there who are with that man, who's the father of their children, and it's not fantastic. All right? I want to speak to you, sis, because I would like you to know, we're not talking about abusers here, right? We're not talking about toxic relationships. We're not talking about anything like that. We're talking about relationships where maybe the spark has gone, where maybe he doesn't understand you anymore, where you guys are not connecting, where you feel like, the whole ships in the night thing, okay, where it's not what you had hoped. I just want to say to you that the chances of you finding another man who will commit to you and stand by you and build with you this unit, the chances of you finding another man like that are slim to none, because you're his wife and the mother of his children, and his loyalty and devotion to you, even if he doesn't do the date nights, even if he's not that hands-on dad that you wanted, even if he doesn't tick all those boxes that we've kind of been building up over time, if he respects you and he loves you in his way, note that I said that, in his way, please don't ever think of divorce with the mindset that I can find someone better. Because we don't talk enough about the difficulties of step-parenting. We do not talk enough about the difficulties of blending families. And wallahi, the thing that I have learned from my experience and what I see with people around me, and I've seen this, is that a stepfather will never love your children like their father.
Taban.
Even stepmother, come in. She's not going to love those kids like she loves her own kids, right? But I think that there's some fairy tale out there that says this father of my children, he's not the best dad. He's not the most hands-on. He doesn't teach them Quran. You know, he doesn't spend time with us. All of these things. Maybe there's a better dad out there for my kids. La, la. Please do not break your home in search of someone new, because it's the biggest gamble you can take. And the chances of you winning on that bet are so slim, because, like I said, we don't talk about it enough. Sisters are out here on these apps saying, I want a father for my children. I want a male role model for my children. Where are you going to find that, sis?
You know,
Even you don't like your kids all the time and you birth them. How about this man that's coming in now? And to be fair, he married because he wanted a wife, right? But now he's taken on these children, and that struggle that he will go through, you can never understand it. Any brothers who in here who have been stepfathers before, they know the struggle. Anyone who has married another man and they've got their own children and has had to deal with taking care of him and kind of protecting the children, but then you want him to be a father, but he's not the father, so you feel some kind of way. That stuff, nobody talks about that stuff enough.
100. I mean, I read a book recently called, you might have read it, The Boy Crisis by Dr. Will Farrell, I believe his name is. Right. And he talks about a lot. That book actually, subhanAllah, that book is a must read. But he mentions many things. And one of the things he mentioned was, do you know what the number one indicator or the number one reason is for a child to be, I need to just censor my words here for the sake of YouTube. For a child to experience some type of abuse from a man, do you know what the number one factor for that is? Causal factor.
What is it?
The presence of a stepfather.
Wow.
That's the number one. It's actually 100 times more likely for a child to experience some type of physical, you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
If there is a step parent involved in the family. That's how serious it is. And when I made this video a while back, I had a sister reach out to me and she said to me, brother, why are you telling us this? You're making us lose hope. I said to her, sister, would you want me to lie to you? This is it. Oh, but brother, you're making us lose hope. Okay, sister, look, I'm just saying to you, don't shoot the messenger. I'm letting you know this is the way it is. Especially if you have daughters. Especially you have daughters. This is real talk. The presence of a stepfather.
And thing is, how uncomfortable is that? You know, you've brought this, and the thing is, I personally have an issue with the way that we seem to be doing things in the West. Firstly, I don't believe that couples should live together straight away, where there are children involved. I think that, you know, involving the children at those early stages is a huge fitna for the relationship, and there are no guarantees that it will last, because we know in a certain demographic, you know, people can have had several marriages, some that lasted a matter of months, right? And now those children are seeing their mother married to Abu so-and-so, then he's gone. Then Abu so-and-so comes in and he's gone. And Abu so-and-so comes in. And every time a man comes into your house,
flipping mess.
He's bringing his energy, however that energy is, right? He's bringing his expectations, his rules, because isn't it, you told him you want Baba, right? You want Baba to come in. But unfortunately, the problem is it's your house. It's not his house. It's your house. And those are your children. And yet you expect him to be the Amir of this house. It so rarely works out. It's unfortunate. Even with the best of intentions, people need to think really carefully. And that's why in my videos and that trilogy of videos, I was saying to sisters, of course, my title was clickbait, right? Sisters, do you need a man? Yeah, it's fantastic, great. However, my main point was, sis, if your life is a mess, get off the apps and sort your life out. If your deen is suffering, heal it. If emotionally you are struggling, you've got baggage, you've got issues, get some help. If your children are ill-disciplined, get them in order, bring super nanny in there. If your finances are wrecked, make a plan. But don't go onto these apps looking for a savior, because all that will happen is that you will either be prey to the brothers out there who can see that you're an easy target, okay, and just want to get in there, or you will be disappointed, and it's draining. Looking for partners on these apps and stuff is a drain on your emotional resources. Everyone should know that. If you've been on the apps and you've been doing the swiping left and swiping right, and you're speaking to someone, seems to be going so well, and you start to develop feelings, and then he ghosts you. He's gone, or she ghosts you. She's gone. It's an emotional roller coaster. And guess what, sis? Your children are bearing the brunt of that. And I'm not saying this to guilt my sisters into not wanting to get married again, but all I'm saying is marriage will not solve your problems. You have to, with Allah's help, try to be as whole and healthy as possible, so that the man that comes in, well, when he's looking at you as a prospect, he can see, you know what, this sister's got her stuff together. Like she's happy, she's good, she's in a great place. She's not needy. She's not looking for me to validate her. She's not looking for me to heal her trauma. This is great. We can just have a relationship and love each other and be happy. I don't know. I don't want to tell men what they want, but I think that's what men want. I don't know. That's my take on it.
I mean, if somebody can't be happy on their own and they're seeking someone else to be their happiness, that never ends well. You have to be comfortable in your own skin, in your own company. If you can't fill your own cup up, nobody can. You're a bottomless pit. And those individuals, they are energy vipers. They're leeches. They drain. Man and woman, they drain you. They're absolutely draining. I want to circle it back around real quick, because I want to bring a conclusion on that, because you did mention that, you see, most brothers are not capable of taking on another wife, because it's pure economics. If it costs you, I don't know, £35,000 a year to take care of one average household, well, do the math. A second average household means £70,000 a year.
A lot.
I think it's less than 20% of the population are earning £70,000 a year, there or thereabouts, right?
Yeah.
Which means that we have a tiny segment of men who are possibly capable of doing it. Not to mention the emotional maturity, which is a whole nother discussion. Like the difficulty of balancing multiple wives, that's a whole other story, right? Yeah. That's something on its own. But we have this tiny niche of brothers able to do it. But that means now we have a big problem, which is we have a number of sisters who are unmarried and they need to get married. And the only brothers, or I should say the majority of brothers who are able, or I should say willing to take them on, are not necessarily able to take them on, which is where this whole misyard thing comes from in the first place. So I have my view on what possible solution is, although I'll never implement it myself. But I want to know from you, Sister Naima, considering this dilemma we have, a whole bunch of unmarried sisters who want to get married, and perhaps the single brothers are overlooking them, and therefore they are starting to wonder, is polygyny an option I should seriously consider? Yeah. What advice would you give to these sisters who are considering polygyny with a brother who is not financially necessarily capable of doing so? What advice would you give these sisters? Because I've seen how these play out. She'll say yes, I'm happy, and then the novelty wears off, and then she's like, she wants to be provided for, which is normal. She's upon her feet, she wants to be taken care of. Normal. Right. But you see, the brother's like, well, I ain't got it. So what's the solution?
Bismillah. I mean, it's a tough one. I mean, I'm of the opinion that, you know, when you are in a situation like you're older, you've got kids or whatever, you know, not the, I don't know, what's top 10%, 50%, whatever. When you're in a situation like that, if you have to decide what you want at the end of the day. If you want to be within the confines of a marriage, cut a deal. That's my advice. Cut a deal, but own your decision. Own your decision, because I mean, a lot of sisters are now, mashallah, they have a house from the government. They may be working, you know, they may actually be financially independent, or they're doing okay. So if that's the case, sis, why are you saying to the brother, you have to pay all my bills? You have to look after my kids. And if you can't do that, then I'm not interested. For me, it's like, sis, what are you bringing to the table though? Like, what are you bringing to the table? Okay. You're not 22 anymore. You're all 38, 45. Okay. The chances are, sorry, sisters, I'm going to be straight with you because you know me already. I do be doing that. Most of us, we're not in tip-top shape, whether it's weight-wise, whether it's fitness-wise, whether it's taking care of ourselves-wise. Not shaming us, not shaming anyone. It's just facts. Okay. So if that's the case, if you already have children, if you don't want the man to necessarily live with you, right? And you're already sort of financially doing okay, then make a deal. firstly, sort yourself out. Get yourself to a place where you can at least tick off the boxes you can tick off. You know, if you need to get into shape, get into shape. If you need to look after yourself better, start looking after yourself better. If your kids are out of control, wallahi, please do not bring a man in that house. Do not, because those kids will resent you. They will hate him. He will hate them. He will resent you. You will hate him. You will resent them. It's a triangle of disaster. It's a Bermuda Triangle. If you know that your kids don't have respect, if you know that your kids do not want you to get married and that they're like, Mom, if you dare get married, because some kids are like that, right? You know that your kids don't have boundaries. If you know that your kids don't have manners, sis, please don't think that a stranger is going to come into your house and whip them into shape. It's not Nanny McPhee, not Super Nanny. They don't have those skills. And those are not his kids. So even if like he's a teacher, for example, right? Or he works with the youth, right? Because I've heard this before as well. Mashallah, the brother works with the youth. I'm hoping he can do X, Y, Z with my kids. The reality is, even if you give him carte blanche to discipline your kids, which you may struggle to do, even if you say it with your mouth, trust me, you're going to feel something inside. Even if you give him that, they are not his children. So he will know his limit. He will know his boundary, because the last thing a man wants to hear is, you're not even my dad. You don't get to say that to me because you're not my dad.
Yep.
It's facts. So my thing is, decide what you want. If you want to be kept like a princess, keep your standards. But you may not find anyone, so you have to be okay with that. If your main goal is to be partnered with somebody who you get along with, who is nice to you, who respects you, then let your standards for these external things really examine them and say, you know, what are the real non-negotiables here? Okay, what are my real baseline needs? And start from there. Because you might meet that brother who, you know what, he's into you, he likes you, and he's prepared to put up with your nonsense, right? Just like you're prepared to put up with his nonsense. And he doesn't have the funds to pay your rent. He can give you money every month, but he can't pay the rent. But you're already paying your rent. So maybe you want to make a deal there. But again, if you decide to make the deal, own that decision. You're an adult. And that was another message that I had in those videos, is that act like an adult, not a child. We're adults out here, we're grown. So if you make a decision, understand the consequences of that and be prepared to take them. Whether your choice is to say yes to polygamy or no, whether your choice is to hold out for the brother who's a doctor like you, even though you're 45 years old and you've never had a child, right? We need to start getting realistic, because I know that, you know, when brothers are kind of on these sites and they're looking and they're slightly older, they can meet wonderful sisters who are 43 and they did the career thing. And they're saying, I want to find a lovely man to start a family. And brothers are like, what? Start a family at 45? I've already got 4 kids. You maybe had a divorce or whatever the case may be. You're talking to me at 42, you want to start having babies? You may not find everything that you're looking for. So decide what are the non-negotiables and make a deal if that's what you want. That's my advice. Wa Allahu a'lam.
I mean, I'm going to add to that as well, but that was excellent. I'm going to add to that in a second. Let me just pull this up real quick. Dude, Desi Barakallah Fik Habib, I've seen your super chats there. Kevin Samuels brought up the point how being a stepdad has disadvantages since you can't discipline a child that's not yours. I mean, most of the time you can't. And even then, like, you feel awkward. Like, do you understand? Yeah, ultimately, the harsh reality is that blood really is thicker than water. You know, I feel I sense it in myself. How I am with my children and how I am with my stepchildren. I am far more direct with my own children. I have far higher expectations for my own children. Why? Because my children are a direct extension and reflection of me. If they mess up, I felt like I'd messed up. So that hurts me. But on some level of consciousness, rightly or wrongly, and we're not moralizing here, it just is, if my stepchild messes up, somewhere in my brain, in my hindbrain, is distancing itself from the action, almost saying to itself, well, you know what, Mahdi, you know, it is what it is, sort of thing.
Yeah.
Facts.
It's true. You know. And yeah, it's true. And the sister, I know sisters, I know it doesn't feel great, sis. I know it doesn't feel great, especially if the divorce was something that either you didn't want or was like, it was the last chance saloon, you had to get out of there, whatever the case may be, right? So the father has cut off, he's gone, whatever the case may be. So you wish that your children could have a loving, stable father figure. That's what sisters want. That's what every mother wants for their child, right?
Mm.
The reality, though, is that that's very unlikely to happen. Okay. And we need to be okay with that because, like I said, this is not a fairy tale. This is real life. And we can't get upset or offended by real life. So don't say to a brother, like, will you treat my kids like they're your own? Of course, he's going to say yes. But the reality is, he biologically, he cannot do it. Can he be fair? Yes. Can he be just? Yes. Can he be nice to them? Yes. But to expect him to treat them like they're his own, unless, of course, he raised them from very young. You know, when you come in and it's still a baby, for example, but still, don't have these high. That's my main thing with sisters is manage your expectations.
I
If
think
you
that's a very
manage your
important
expectations, you've got a bigger chance of being happy. The higher your expectations, the more likely that you will be disappointed.
Yeah, and that word there, expectations. You see, broken expectations are the cause of so much unhappiness, so much dissatisfaction. You go in expecting one thing, and then when that doesn't happen, that's when you're unhappy. And that's why I'm not big on this whole happiness thing because chasing happiness oftentimes is a fool's errand. Because happiness is a very it's a passing fancy. It comes and it goes quickly.
Feeling. Yeah.
It's a feeling and it comes and it goes quickly. You see, chasing, pursuing purpose, sacrifice, responsibility.
Yeah.
That will the side effect of doing that is happiness. Happiness,
Satisfaction.
satisfaction. You can't chase happiness. Is like your shadow. You try and chase after it, you'll never catch it. You turn your back on it and you do what you have to do, and it will have no choice but to follow you. You need to pursue something meaningful. Do that meaningful thing, and one of the side effects of that thing is you will be happy. You see. Now, with regards to cutting a deal with a sister, although I think that's great advice, in theory, myself personally, I wouldn't do it. Well, if I take on another woman, I'm going to take care A to Z. Why? Because I'm super generous and all of that? I mean, I'd like to think I am, but no, that's not the main reason. The main reason is I know the nature of woman. Woman wants to feel like she's taken care of. And if she doesn't feel like that, even if you've cut a deal, it's hard for her to respect you when she knows she's paying the rent. You're in my home. Get out of my home. You got no leverage as a man. You see?
I think it's the leverage issue. And I think I agree with you on the leverage because when a woman, like I said, when a woman sees you as indispensable, right? There's that leverage there, right? And especially if you are a man who wants things done a certain way, you can't come with that alpha energy and you're not paying the bills. Forget it. Ala tool, forget it. Yeah.
Glad you said.
Just forget it. Okay. Because now you're just like the emperor with no clothes. Because everybody knows you're sleeping in her bed, in her house, eating food she bought from Tesco's, right? And you didn't even bring a single cent. And then you're trying to say, oh, I'm the man of the house. Oh, respect me. I'm your husband.
And she's the second wife or the third wife.
It leaves a very, very, very sour taste in the mouth. And I know so many sisters who really, they wanted the marriage to last forever. But fil akhir, the question came, sorry, what do I need you for again? And especially if you're a demanding husband and you're not footing the bill, you're not paying the bills, you're not actually somebody who's useful around the place. Kevin Samuels talks about that being useful. He talks about how men have to be useful, right? And the more useful you are, sort of the more you can take up space, right? If you are walkless, waste man, don't expect your marriages to last because those women will lose respect for you. I'm sorry to say. So one of the things that I like about MTR, especially MTR and a lot of the other guys, Rich Cooper and everything, and also you're doing the same thing, encouraging men to be on their purpose, encouraging men to become the best versions of themselves. We haven't really seen this conversation in the Muslim community. I would argue that up until like 5, maybe 7 years ago, the Muslim space was a manosphere. It was. There were no women talking. You didn't hear Muslim women talking about anything. It was all brothers, yeah, mashallah. That's this Muslim women having a voice that people can hear is actually relatively new. So what the manosphere out there is responding to, the gynocentric society, etc., that's not being the Muslim reality. This is my analysis. Up until quite recently, the Muslim space was a manosphere. Only men really spoke. But what we didn't hear coming out, even in that time, was this idea of the Muslim man as an individual optimizing himself. So, in terms of his deen, we've always heard that. But we've not heard that with regards to his headspace, regards to his money, regards to his fitness, regards to his sense of purpose and direction. And the thing is, those are the things that make a man attractive, right, to his wife or to potential wives. A man who's going somewhere. You want to be part of that program. You want to be part of that program because you can see that this brother's got his head screwed on. He's going places. I want to go with him, yeah, and I want to support him in this going along thing. So I think it's really helpful for these kind of late millennials, Gen Z, young brothers who now are growing up in a time where Muslim women are very vocal, right? Which in the 90s it wasn't the case. Early 2000s it wasn't the case. Now I see these young boys looking to people like yourself and other people to say, you know what, brother, focus on your grind. Focus on optimizing yourself, build yourself into the best version of yourself, and then you'll be able to have the life that you want, basically. And if a sister doesn't want to get on that program, it's okay. You'll find another one. And that's what I say to my boys, because I said to them, no simping. Yeah, no simping whatsoever. Sure. My boys are 15 and 18, and I say to them, your job right now is to become the best version of yourself. Because when you get in a few years' time where you've got your own business, you're educated, you've got deen, you're ripped like crazy, you've got manners, you know how to deal with people, you're social and all that kind of thing, you'll be able to pick the sister that looks at you and says, I can't believe he chose me. This is fantastic. This is great. I'm not going to mess this up. And that's the woman that you want to be with. That's the one you want to commit to. So you see a lot of this, this culture where men are chasing after these kind of Insta models and stuff like that and validating them and all of that. And there was a Blue Therapy clip where you heard, I'm sure you've seen it, where this girl, so entitled. And she was like, you haven't got me my Gucci bag. You promised me this ring and you didn't get it for me. And the guy turned around and said, sorry, what exactly do you bring to the table? And she was so stunned. And she was like, well, how can he say that? And he's like, did I start? We all watched that together. And I said to my boys, you come home with a girl like that, you get the chapal, right? Because that's not the woman for you. I don't care how beautiful she is, how many men want her. Inshallah, you're not going to be looking that direction. But any woman who is looking at you to see what she can extract from you and not what she can add to your life, and she's actually not bringing anything to the table, you're not committing to her. That's not your wife. But anyway, this is an overbearing mother talking, I'm sure. So,
I mean, I'm not often lost for words, but I'm very impressed, I have to say, Sister Naima. I wasn't expecting the conversation to go this way. Allahumma barik.
I've got sons. This is the thing, brother. It's easy for me to be pro-woman because I'm a woman. It's easy for me to be pro-woman because all my friends are women, okay? And the women I work with who are absolutely amazing, we're all women. I've got daughters, alhamdulillah. So it's easy for me to side with the sisters. I've been doing it for years because in our community, it was needed. Sisters did not have a voice. Sisters had no one to turn to. No one ever took the sister's side or listened to the sister's side of the story. That was back in the day. Now my sons are older. I've been married. I see the way society is changing. I see the way things are going. And I realize that we need to be adults here as women, right? We're not children. We need to take accountability. So if we're out of line, we need to hold our hands up and say, and I have to want for my sons what I want for my daughters. And I realized that in a marriage where the man is kind of chasing after the approval of the woman, even though we've been taught that that's what women want, they want to be spoiled, they want to be worshipped, they want to be obsessed about and all this kind of thing. We've been taught that through the songs and Hollywood and everything. Fil akhir, that guy is going to get played because she does not respect him. And she knows that I've got this guy wrapped around my little finger. And unfortunately, having your husband or your whatever wrapped around your little finger is not a very good indicator of longevity and stability. So I would much rather that my daughters marry like it's hypergamy, I guess, marry up someone who they look up to and they respect, and my sons marry someone who looks up to them and is like, that's my man. Yes. Not like, huh, I gave you the chance, like I chose you and you're lucky that I chose you. No, 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 no.
Heavy, subhanallah, heavy. Dude, Desi, appreciate the $20 super chat. Akhi, question for you both. Do any of you two know of any mujtahids that have given their legal opinions regarding step-parent and stepchild relationships? Just wanted to know what Islamic scholars have said on the topic. Sister Naima, you got anything on this?
Yeah, I mean, Bismillah, from what we know, the stepfather is not financially responsible for the children. If he spends on them, it's sadaqah, and they are mahram. Because once you have gone into the mother, her children are mahram, her daughters are actually mahram to you. So the difficulty that you'll find is when you're trying to blend families, because the step siblings are not mahram, right? So the stepfather, the daughters, they are mahram for the daughters, right?
Yes.
The stepsons are mahram to the wife, but the step siblings are not mahram to each other. So that's something to kind of bear in mind if you're blending a family. It makes things a little bit difficult. But in terms of financially being responsible, etc., they are not responsible. So that's what I know on it.
Barakallahu feek. The guys in the who are watching this right now, please hit that like. Barakallahu feekum. It helps with the algorithm. Got another one here. Ali LGBE, appreciate it, Akhi. Thank you for the £18 super chat. Allah Mahdi, keep up the good work. Appreciate it, bro.
He's happy. He's happy.
Barakallahu feek. Jazakallah khair. So where I want to take this next, Sister Naima, is this push in the West for our Muslim sisters, for women, period, but it has infiltrated the Muslim community to prioritize their young Muslim women, to prioritize their education, their studies, their careers, oftentimes over looking for a husband, period. If not the same, sometimes even more so. What's your thoughts on this?
Well,
you know, you're a successful woman yourself. You're established. I read your book, mashallah. You run. Do you still run the business that you inherited from your late husband? Allah have mercy on him.
No, Allah yarhamu. No, we closed it after 2 years, alhamdulillah. But we ran it successfully for 2 years, alhamdulillah.
Right. So you've been a CEO. You know, you've done the rounds in the career world, if you like.
Yeah.
So you've done that. You've been there, done that, got the T-shirt. But you were also in a successful, loving marriage. So, what's your take on this? I have my position. What's your take on this?
Bismillah. I would not like to see a situation which was the norm 20, 30 years ago, where Muslim girls were at 16, kind of their education was cut off and they were married off. I don't want us to go back there, mainly because, I don't know, I'm probably going to get shot down for this, but if you had some potential to kind of grow intellectually, to be educated, to be a bit more kind of grounded about the world that we live in, I think that we should have that opportunity. I think that it's a good thing. Now, let's talk about GCSEs.
Let me build that out real quick, because you mentioned if you have an opportunity to. Sorry, say that again. If you had an opportunity to what?
Okay, let me be vulnerable for a minute here.
Sure.
I was in Zimbabwe where I grew up, and there's a particular area in Harare where a lot of Muslims live, and I met a girl in niqab at the butcher's, and she invited me home to her house. Those days you just went, right? So I went. And all her female family members were there, her mother and her sisters, and they were all there. They were wearing hijabs in the house. I was asking them sort of what they do, and they said, "Oh, we're doing." Some of them were doing like alama courses, and others were just kind of at home. So I asked them, like, which high school did you go to? She said, "No, we finished at grade 7." So I was like, "Oh, all of you?" She said, "Yeah, that's how we do things." And that was hard for me. That was really hard for me, because a grade 7 education, that's basically a primary school education. Right. And I thought about that young woman going into marriage, probably quite soon, I'm sure her parents were hoping, going into marriage and having children. And I guess within a certain context, maybe she'd be okay. Maybe it wouldn't matter that she didn't know anything about biology or, like chemistry or physics or like geography and stuff like that. Maybe it wouldn't matter. But at the time, I thought to myself, when her children are in school, she's going to be at a disadvantage because she's not going to know how things work. She's not going to be able to explain things to them. She won't be able to, in her children, inculcate the desire for knowledge, for learning, whatever. This is my own personal thing, right? So let me not digress. The push towards university education and careers is something that we as Muslims should be circumspect about. And I'm saying this to my young sisters as well, because I know how easy it is to kind of jump on that train and go off on that train. And you only jump off the train when you're 25, 26, 27, and you realize that all men are misogynists and that the patriarchy is to blame for everything, and you could never see yourself doing X, Y, Z. It's a very real danger, and we see it happening. I'll tell you another story. I was invited by a Muslim marriage app. They had an event, and they were talking about gender equality in Islam. So I was the oldest person there, and there was another imam there, and then there were these 2 or 3 kind of influencer blogger girls, millennials. And here we are having a conversation about men and women in Islam and marriage. And they're coming out with misogyny, toxic masculinity, the patriarchy, all of this type of stuff. You know that lens. And I in that moment, that's when I realized this is dangerous, because this lens that feminism gives us basically makes maleness a problem. Being a man is a problem, because the ideal is woman. The way we do things, the way we talk about things, the way we like things, that is now the ideal. That's the whole gynocentric, social system, right?
The female way of emoting is the correct.
Exactly, all of that, right? And so now what you have is because of your education, because of what you watch, because of what you listen to, because of who you follow on social media, your mind is set to see anything that looks like a man as a problem. So if a man has ghaira, he's toxic. If a man sees himself as Amir of the family, he's problematic. If a man wants to take care of the bills, he's trying to oppress you. Can you see how it warps everything that our deen teaches us? And I despaired for these girls, because I said, how are they going to get married? How are they ever going to live in peace with a man? How are they ever going to be at peace with their natural role as women in a marriage? It's going to be hard for them. And that's going to happen to more and more and more girls, because it's happening out in the wider society. And as Muslims, we're in that. So for me, I think we need to try to strike a balance with our daughters and our sons. And I don't know, try to give them a lens that is based on what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants from us. Okay, what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants from us is for us to worship Him. And He wants our societies to look a certain way. Yes, we can worship Allah whether we're single, divorced, we have kids, we don't have kids, yes. But there is an ideal that we work towards, right? There is like a structure that we are supposed to be building and maintaining. So that has to be a priority. So for me, I mean, I did the CEO thing, I've had a business, I've written books, but I was a kept woman for 15 years. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. And I say to sisters, I say to my own sister, I say the kept woman lifestyle is the lick. Okay? It's the lick.
You heard it here first, guys.
It's the lick, brothers. If you are able to, and I have to really give, kudos to my late husband, Allah yarhamu, Sulaiman Amankwa, because he was an alpha. He was the Amir of the household. He led us, but he had a vision. He had a vision for the family, and he respected me. So I was his queen in that respect. I wasn't his queen in that he worshipped me, no. But I was his queen because I was on the throne, my throne, running my side of the kingdom, while he was on his throne running his side of the kingdom. And I'm grateful to Allah that I was able to take care of my side of the bargain, because He more than took care of His side of the deal. And I'm grateful for that. And so any woman who's been in that situation, you know how light you feel. Even if, mashallah, he likes to have a cup of tea when he comes home. Even if He likes the dinner to be ready on time. Even if he likes to cuddle up 4 times a week, it's okay, sis. It's okay because he's doing his thing. He's doing what he's supposed to do, you know? And I think that just being aware of and grateful for what your husband does do instead of focusing on what he doesn't do or what he's not, I think many marriages would be a lot stronger if us as women simply focused on gratitude for what this man brings to your life. Because trust me when I say, being a single mom ain't what it's cracked up to be. Okay? It doesn't matter. Even if you have the money, even if you have money, alhamdulillah, I'm not struggling. But being on your own and being solely in charge of your children, it's not easy. It's sometimes the hardest thing in the whole world to know that the responsibility for these children is on you and you need to figure it out. When you're in that protective barrier of a marriage with the father of those children, even if it's not perfect, even if it's not 5-star khamas nugum, right? But you're safe and protected. Please never think, sis, I'll be better off on my own. At least I get to do things my way. At least I won't have to deal with X, Y, Z. Please, sis, I really believe that it is a trap of shaitan. Shaitan beautifies that single state for you. And again, let's disclaimer, we're not talking about toxicity and violence and abuse and anything like that. You know what the deal is when it comes to that. I'm talking about just normal relationship issues. There is no person that is going to tick every one of your boxes.
Here's the issue. Here's the issue is that a lot of sisters will turn around and say, but I am being abused. But I am in a toxic relationship. And much of the time, it's because she doesn't have another standard to compare against. So maybe it's her first marriage, for example. Oftentimes, it's her first marriage, and her husband does, I don't know, X, Y, and Z, and it irritates her. Maybe he's got a certain quirk about him. Maybe he's quite closed off. But he's not actually like beating the hell out of her or anything like that, right? But she feels, and this is the key point here, she feels like she's in a toxic relationship. She feels like she's being abused.
Don't trust those emotions. Don't trust those emotions. Guys, I don't know whether any of you have ever been in that space where you're so low that you feel your whole life is just a disgrace. It's a failure. You're a failure. You could either, if Allah said to you, do you want to leave now? You'd be like, yep, book me on that flight. I'm out. Type a yes in the comments if you've ever felt like that. That feeling will last for half an hour, 5 hours, 3 days. And then something will happen. Someone will say something, someone will do something, and your mood will shift. And you'll be like the happiest person in the world. You'll feel like so blessed and grateful. And to be honest, only one thing happened that changed your mood. So what I have realized is that you can't trust emotions because emotions are always changing. And emotions are based on your perception of reality. They are not, it's not an immediate reaction or an immediate response to something that happens. So say, for example, your husband comes home and he doesn't greet you with a hug. He says, Salaam alaikum, and he goes straight to the room, right? Now, depending on your perception of that action, you're going to feel some kind of way. If in your head you say, he must be really tired, miskeen, let me go make him a drink, you probably feel quite hopeful and quite glad because you're like, I know that he loves the way I make this particular tea. I'm going to take it to him. It's going to be great. And you're going to be feeling great. That's your husband is coming from work. It's cool. If your perception of that is that he doesn't like me, he must be angry with me, maybe, he's seeing someone else or any of those types of thoughts, all of a sudden you feel like I'm not appreciated around here. He doesn't even care about me. He doesn't even love me. He never loved me. And all of a sudden there's this storm happening inside you, all because of your perception of what happened. So sisters need to really get to grips with those emotions and managing their emotional state and trying to look at the reality for what it is rather than this is how I feel. Because you can feel any kind of way. It doesn't mean that it's true. It's just for you, it feels true because that's your emotional state. But understanding that emotions change and emotions are based on what you're feeding. So if you're looking at your husband right now and you're looking at his belly and you're looking at how he's late to the prayer and you're looking at all the bad things about him, trust me, you're not going to be feeling good about that man. You're going to be thinking, you know what, I should never have married him. And you're going to be thinking all sorts of things because of what you're focusing on. But if you were to flip the focus and start focusing on how he put the kids to bed and how he gave you a hug when he came home and how he always sends you a text in the morning and all of those nice things that he does, all of a sudden you feel, mashallah, I've got the best husband in the world. Such is life.
Where you put your focus. Fascinating. Let's grab these super chats real quick. KM, Habibi, appreciate it. No comments. Jazakallah khair for the £5 super chat. Got another one down here somewhere. 1 second, Sister Naima. Where are we? Dude, Desi, shout out to you, Akhi. Jazakallah khair for the $60 super chat, my man. Appreciate it.
Mashallah.
I just want to say that may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant your husband Jannah al-Firdaus with endless rewards, inshallah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant you the same for your bravery, honesty, and guidance you are giving to the sisters of today. Barakallah feek. Appreciate it, Abdul Hamid. Jazakallah khair. That's beautiful. Jazakallah khair, Abdul Hamid. I wanted to rewind real quick because we've got two important discussions happening at the same time. And I want to come back real quick, Sister Naima. And that is the topic of education. Okay? So, because I've got my thoughts on it, and we're going to get to that. At what point do you feel a sister is educated, meaning she has reached that threshold of educated, and like this is now, alhamdulillah, she's educated, mashallah. What's that level? What's that point in your view?
Well, I think this is a cultural discussion, not so much a Dini discussion, because for Deen, none of it's really like relevant. It's not necessary. You don't have to have it. It's not like it's far to be educated to A level. So let's, if we can, just put the Deen to one side and let's look at it culturally, because this is a conversation I've been having with many mothers. And obviously, in certain societies, certain communities, if the girl doesn't have a degree, she's considered worthless. We know this. With Desis, not so much about Arabs, not sure about Arabs, but Desis.
Do you mean worthless to the community? Like
when they're trying to get married, no, it's not even about the community. It's about when they're trying to get married, parents want to match their doctor's son with a woman with a degree. A lot of the time you find that they'll say, she has a degree, so that's a good thing, right? Other communities, the degree doesn't matter. It's no big deal. Here in Egypt, if you are of a certain socio-economic standing and you don't have a degree, you will not be able to marry within that class because you're considered like a failure in that class. So culturally, I think it makes a difference. In a lot of revert communities, they don't look at degrees, right? It's not a thing, okay? It's they're not going to base the yes or the no on the fact that she has a degree. So I think that gauging your cultural milieu is important. But for my own daughter, I can only speak for my own daughter. Okay. If I could get them to degree level as early as possible, maybe even engaged before they go to university or while they're at university, that's what I did. I did my A-levels in Zimbabwe, went to university. I became Muslim at university, and I got married in my final year. And after university, khalas, I went and I lived with my husband and I had my first child, and I lived that life. And I feel I could have gone without the degree, because although having said that, Africans don't like that. Africans, they do prefer that you're educated. Africans don't play when it comes to education. You probably know that. So if I hadn't had a degree, my husband's family would have seen that as an issue. So the fact that I had a degree, for them, that was a great thing. My husband himself, he wasn't that concerned about it, although it gave us parity kind of intellectually. We could vibe on the same level. And it allowed me to kind of, when I was parenting, I think I became a very educated parent because I did a lot of reading and researching and all of that kind of thing. But it worked well for me because I had something in my back pocket. Now, qadar Allah, I never needed it. But had I needed it, and maybe my life did require it, because when my husband passed, Allah yarhamu, I had to take over his business. And if I had never gone to university or hadn't had an experience in tertiary, I don't know whether I would have had the confidence to go into that role. But that's my own personal experience. That's me personally. And I think everyone will have their own kind of gauge. What are your thoughts anyway? I think I know your thoughts anyway.
I mean, you make a good point that some cultures are quite picky on that, and I wonder, I can't say for sure, but I wonder if it's the men of that culture or the women of that culture who are picky which one, who wants it, who's pushing it more. Because I know what men want. Men want, simple stuff. But I have a more important question, and that
Right.
question is, let's go along with this. Let's say it is true. There are some communities which are, they will say, my daughter, if you want to marry my son, she's got to at least have a degree. Okay, fine. The question I have to ask is, why are we doing this? For what purpose?
Status.
What is the reason that she must have a degree? Why?
Status.
Status for what?
Status in the community. I believe that. I think that's
Right.
what it is.
So you're saying the degree gives you a degree of status, essentially?
Yeah, I think so. Because you see, what's interesting to me in the Desi community, for example, is how involved families are in saying yes or no to a potential partner. I don't get it personally. I think it's crazy, but it's happening because the mother is the one setting the criteria. The mother is the one saying, we want her to be fair. She must be this age. She must have a degree. She needs to be from this village or whatever. Because I'm sure many of those young men, they couldn't care less.
Now, this is my point. This is my point, Sister Naima.
Yeah.
And you have just confirmed my suspicion when I said earlier, I wonder if it's the men of the family or the women of the family who are putting up these stipulations, because I know women amongst each other, they rate these things. You got to get your degree and so on and so forth. Why? Because women rate those things in a man. The mistake being made here is, if I like those things in a man, men must also like those things in us. Now, you just mentioned here that it's the mother who is placing those stipulations. If that's the case, yes, go. You want to say something?
No, finish your point now. I think
so. My point was,
yeah.
if this is being driven by the women, then my message to the women is this: look, you're going to go through university, you're going to get saddled with a whole bunch of debt, you're going to have your mind. University campuses are the breeding grounds for all of the warped ideas in the world that have perpetuated the world today. The alphabet community, all of that stuff starts in university. All of that stuff, all of that blue
primary now, to be fair, but yeah.
Well, right, there you go. That blue head wokeism stuff, right?
Yeah.
That's the breeding ground. So, considering that she's most likely not going to use the degree, considering that she has to saddle herself with a debt that she can never claim bankruptcy on, considering what are we doing it for? For what?
Yeah. Okay, I hear your point, and I agree. I think that we need to be careful about what we're signing up for when we sign up for university, period. I think we need to be careful of that. I think that, as families and individuals, we have the right to choose the trajectory of our own families. And I actually don't think that a degree should be the logical step for everyone, because, you know how it is. People take they'll do a degree. Most degrees, especially liberal arts degrees, don't lead to a career. They're just a degree. And now you're one of many, many different graduates who can't find work. So if you have always wanted to practice a profession where you need a degree, you have to go to university. Khalas, you don't have a choice.
Right.
But as for other things, right, if you want to be an entrepreneur, don't go to university and study business studies. What a waste of time and money. Do a course, do a program, one of these online programs, and learn how to, do Facebook ads or something and start making that money,
Right.
Do an apprenticeship. If my daughter, for example, is extremely fit and healthy, etc., I'm gonna put her in a personal trainer course so she can have her own business. Or she wants to do hair or henna or whatever. It doesn't have to be a degree. I think that's what I'm saying. But I think as well, what you described about women valuing the things. This is the thing. I'll read some of your comments. And I will say, as a woman who is, educated and has her own, quote unquote, it can be a bit triggering. And I think a lot of women, especially Muslim women, don't like the fact that men are not checking them for those things. Men are not checking for the fact that you've got a degree. Men are not looking for the fact that you've got this, you got that, you got that. The number of terrible TV shows that I watch about marriage where the woman introduces herself as a strong, independent woman.
Right.
And it's like, sis, that's exactly what he doesn't want. That's exactly what he doesn't want. And really, our girls are falling into this. I remember one of our coaches, she had a program where she was teaching Muslim women, especially professional Muslim women, how to date, right? How to have sit downs, how to have those conversations, because a lot of the sisters would come with this really masculine energy. And I have a theory about this masculine energy, right? And my theory is this: And the thing is, your viewers may think that I have a lot of masculine energy, and I probably do, because from primary school, we are put in a masculine competitive environment, right? And the aspects of the alpha male, the competing, the dominance, the winning, the doing well, the excelling, the making things happen, the pushing, which is all masculine energy, that is what allows you to succeed through
Absolutely.
primary school, through high school, into university, and into the workforce, right? And as women, if you were one of those winners, you're proud of those aspects of yourself. You
Right.
like the fact that you are determined and strong and ambitious. These are the things you like about yourself because everyone around you praised these. These are the qualities that allowed you to win, right? And got you to the top of your game.
Right.
Now, when we're talking about interpersonal relationships with the opposite gender, we have a problem, because the masculine, especially the masculine man, he's not looking for a masculine woman. So this whole thing about power couples, right, where she's an alpha and he's an alpha, right, and he's a boss and she's a boss and all that. Sorry, guys, it's some fairy tale, because an alpha is a man who's winning, who's on his mission, he's on his purpose. What he wants at home is peace. What he wants at home is the opposite of what he's going out and putting into the world. He wants that feminine energy. He wants that softness. He wants to be able to lay his head down, right? He doesn't want to have this stuff. He doesn't want to compete with you. He doesn't want to argue with you. He doesn't want to have debates with you. He doesn't want to have to assert himself over you. That is not his piece. And no alpha worth his salt is going to sign up for that. So unfortunately, what women realize now is all the aspects of my character that made me win in the outside world are damaging my relationships with men. And it's almost like you have to relearn your femininity and re-engage with your feminine nature, because society has basically trained it out of you, because you never were going through school or any other space being praised for being feminine, right? If you were feminine, you lost. If you're masculine, you win. And this is the whole paradox of feminism, which claims to champion women, but actually is asking women to become men and telling men, you don't get to be men. You don't get to be men anymore because that's toxic. We're going to do the manning now. You know what I mean? So for sisters who kind of, if you want a relationship with a man that is, how can I say? And this is the thing. We could say that a woman who is in her masculine, she should choose a man who's in his feminine, right? Makes sense, because we need the polarity, right? We need the polarity, we need the yin and the yang. Unfortunately, biology says different.
Right.
So even if you do find that man who is the feminine to your masculine, something inside you is not going to respect him. It's not going to gel. And fil akhir, because he's a man, even though he's in his feminine, he's still a man, right? He's got that inner manhood. He is not going to accept the disrespect. But the reality is that was the arrangement that you guys made. I'll be the man and you be the woman. But then he's like, no, but I'm a man. You need to respect me as a man. So no, you ain't no man. Okay, you're the woman here, right? Sit down. So with sisters who do have the education, who have the career, who have everything, sis, leave that at the door. Leave it at the door. It doesn't belong in your relationship. It doesn't belong in your marriage, okay? It's great for winning out in the world, but you have to be able to take off the work clothes and the padded shoulders and put on your house dress or whatever it is and just relax and be in your feminine if you want to bring out the best in your man. Right. Because what happens with a lot of brothers, I've seen this happening over the years. You know, there's the whole betatization. I don't think brothers get betatized that much, if that's the word for it. But what happens is the woman starts to take over. She wants things done a certain way. She asks the husband to do it. He doesn't do it on her schedule or the way she wants. And she says, okay, I'll do it, right? And that's the first mistake, because he is going to let you do it. John Gray talks about this in Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus. He says, a man wants to feel capable. A man wants to feel like he can solve the problems. A man wants to feel like you need him and you respect him. The more you show him that you don't need him and you don't respect him, the more he pulls back. And then by the end of it, you're doing everything. you're frazzled, you're overworked, and you're like, why don't you help me? Well, you created the situation by trying to control it.
I want to backpedal real quick because you mentioned that it sounds like that sisters, they put themselves through this rigmarole. She gets her degree, maybe she's got a master's, some of them even get a PhD, and she wants to be valued for that. Naturally, she's put in a whole bunch of sweat and tears for that, right?
Yeah.
But then it's a terribly bitter pill to swallow once she realizes that men really don't care. Really, we don't care. It's like me. It's like a man saying to a woman that, you know, I've got this Pokemon card collection at home, and then expecting her to value our Pokemon card collection. Like, what are you talking about? You know, if anything, as you mentioned, in order to succeed in these arenas, particularly in the workplace, you have to hone a high level of trait disagreeableness. Disagreeable people go further in the workplace, period. Because
that's the
you
environment.
can't other people's BS. You've got to know how to say no. The problem is if a woman is in that's her natural state. She's used to pushing through these no's. She brings that to a relationship with any man worth his salt. They're just going to be butting heads constantly butting heads, which brings me back to my initial point, which was, unless you're doing a degree for a specific purpose, for example, you correctly mentioned that some professions require you to go through the academic route, doctor, engineer, so on and so forth, right? Unless there's a specific outcome at the end of it, for what are we pushing our kids to sign up for nooses around their neck? Why? What's the because Fulan said so? And this is the blind leading the blind. And universities love it. I graduated from the University of Hertfordshire. University of Hertfordshire have 25,000 students. I just did the math, quick math. 25,000 times by £9,000 a year is $250 million in tuition fees. Yes. One single, that's not including international students who pay 3, 4, 5 times. Right? That's not including postgraduate students who are also paying a lot of money. That's just undergrads living in the UK paying normal rate. Quarter of a bit. This is a business. So my thing is, unless there is a clear route, man or woman, at the end of it, signing yourself up for a problem. Now, to the sisters, because I had a client yesterday, and super chats are going to get you in a second. I had a client yesterday, and the sister he is considering marrying, she is studying medicine. She's in her 2nd or 3rd year of medicine. And she wants to become a practicing doctor. Obviously, who wants to study 5 years of medicine and then not do something with it, right?
No.
Thing is, the brother said to her, but I want to have a housewife. I want you to be a housewife. How do you think that went down, Naima? Right. She wasn't having a bar of it. She was like, hell no. What are you talking about? I need to what am I doing this degree for? This medicine for what? Why am I going to become a doctor? But herein is the problem. Because I did a reaction video to a sister, PhD student. She's 34 years old and she's struggling to get married. This is the thing, Sister Naima, is that we really don't care. And this is a really tough pill for women. Men en masse are saying, we don't care. You're not going to get any props from us whatsoever. Any more than I will get props from my Pokemon card collection. Now, I know you mentioned that the families, some cultures, and so on and so forth. I get it. But even that notion is being peddled by the families, not necessarily by the suitor himself.
For sure. Because, like I said, it's a status thing. And it is, you know, maybe it's the women of the family or it's just the class. If you are upper middle class, because remember, education is the marker of class, right? If you don't have a degree, you are working class, pretty much, right? If you're middle class, you've got to have a degree. Otherwise, how are you middle class, right? So middle class families, again, I'm not talking about brothers here. I'm talking about families. So in communities where the family is very involved, you're going to have this clash. The brother himself, he probably could marry the waitress from Thing and be happy. We always talk about that, right? The guy of 6 figures, he'll happily marry the girl from Starbucks because she's nice or whatever. But the families don't look at things like that. Families, it's about status. It's about stability. It's about the family name. It's about izzat, not Islamic, but that's what it is, right? So if, like I said, if you are a middle class family and you're hoping that your daughter is going to marry into another middle class family, if she doesn't go to university, she's at a disadvantage in terms of the marriage market because the Auntie G's are like, what's worthless girl?
And
What's she done for
yeah,
herself?
I get it. And if those auntie G's have a considerable say in the decision making process, I get it. I hear what you're saying. That's an interesting angle. It's not something I've considered before, so I appreciate you bringing that to the table. Actually, let me just pull
I
up the
think it's
super chat.
because I think it's because maybe a lot of our audience is people who are looking for themselves and are
Mm,
on apps and like they're doing it themselves. It's not the family looking anymore. Maybe that's maybe
yes.
for a different section, or maybe it's a generational thing even. But it's just something to bear in mind why certain families would insist that no, you must get a good degree. And even if the girl is practicing and she's like, I don't want to go to university, they're like, no, you must go, because
Mm,
it's shameful for us if our daughter doesn't have a degree. We want her to have a
mm,
suitable match class
mm.
wise, which means you need to have this.
Interesting. Very interesting. Barakallah fiik. Dude, Desi, appreciate once again. I think $25 super chat. Based on personal observation and experience, I would say moms are the biggest villains in the family and or the other women in the man's family. I'm speaking about South Asian Muslim
Mm.
families in particular. I mean, what would you have to say about that, Sister Naima?
They have a lot of control. Like I said, the brother he could have, for example, he could be an Asian brother who likes black women.
Mm,
His family doesn't care.
mm,
His family don't care. You're not marrying a black woman, and you're not marrying a dark-skinned woman either. She's going to be fair, this for them, because it's somehow their business, kind of who their child marries. Like I said, I'm not from the culture, so I don't want to sound disrespectful, but I do think that it's very strange for me that parents feel that they have the right to choose their child's life partner based on certain criteria that the child didn't even sign up for. Like the man himself didn't say, this is what I want. He's just going along with it. But maybe it's changing generationally. I don't know. Maybe in the chat, people can tell us if
mm.
this is still happening, because I'm thinking Gen X parents like me, our generation are probably not going to be doing the arranged marriages for our Gen Z children.
Mm.
We're probably expecting them to find someone, or kind of bring someone to the table. So I don't, and even us, our perception of marriage is so different to our parents and grandparents. I don't
Right.
think many parents of my generation are actively going to be involved in saying she's the one for you, and no, this one is not for you, based on our own criteria. I could be wrong. Allahu alam.
No, I mean, I agree. There were two other super chats. They complete. I'm trying to find them. They didn't come up. But Jazakumullah khair. I appreciate it. Wallahi, they disappeared. I feel bad now. I don't know how to put them back up. But Jazakumullah khair. But to add on to that, see, there's something I brought here. You see, what do you? Okay, I want to ask you first before I bring this up, Sister Naima. What do men, in your view, want from a woman? What do men want? We know what women want. What do men want?
Is this where I give the line about the 3 Fs or the 4 Fs? Fit, friendly, feminine, whatever. I don't know. No, I think that concept of the man's peace and that the woman is his peace, I think it sums it up nicely, because even peace looks different for different people, right? Your woman should be your safe space, right? She's got your back. Ideally, she's ride or die. Yeah, ideally. So it doesn't always happen, but ideally, she is in your corner. She's ride or die. She is for you. And you know that she respects you, she loves you, she believes in you, and she is for you. She's not against you. She's not fighting with you. She's not like trying to get one over on you. She's in your corner. So when you go into the boxing ring of the world and you're taking the punches, taking the punches, taking the punches, when you finish doing that, you go back where? Into the corner, and your wife is there, and she's telling you those words of affirmation, and she's dabbing down your cuts, and she's giving you to drink that ice water, and she's like, it's okay, babe, I know you've got this, I know that she's rubbing your shoulders. She's like, yeah, okay, you ready to go out again? You're like, yeah, I'm ready. And then off you go. It's kind of, that's the analogy that I would that's the analogy that I would think, because that if he's a man worth his salt, he's in the ring boxing on behalf of you and your family, right? Whatever that boxing looks like, whether it's he's building his business, whether it's he's working, or he's working out, or he's, whatever he's doing out there, inshallah, if he's a man who's responsible and worth his salt, it's all coming back to you anyway. It's for your sake, because I think that's innate in men who haven't had it kind of bred out of them somehow, that desire to provide for their own. So
Right. And I'm seeing in the comments right now, chase excellence, not women. This is all true, you know, but
Agreed.
I'm going to tell you frankly, gentlemen, we do all this for one thing, women. And the more successful a man becomes, the more women we put in our kingdoms. It's just the way it's always been. Hence why the most established and successful men have had the most women in their harem. Think Genghis Khan. Every 1 in 200 men is a direct descendant of Genghis Khan, right? The bottom line is, it is true, you should chase excellence, and then women will come around about as a side effect of that. But what is the primary motivating force? All right, gentlemen, try and imagine a planet without women. Now come back and tell me how motivated you feel. Facts. That's how strong the urge is. That's how much it drives us. But I wanted to actually read this tafsir from Ibn Kathir on, I think it's in Surah Al-Baqarah, verse 100 and, where is it? 112, I believe it is. I'm going to read it out, Al-Muhim. And he says here that Adam alayhi salam was settled in paradise. He walked around there for a while without a spouse with whom he could be consoled. Once he fell asleep. When he woke up, he saw a woman whom Allah created from his rib. He asked, "What are you?" And the woman answered, "I am a woman." And he asked the woman, "Why have you been created?" And the woman said, "So that you would be consoled with me." This is the number one thing. If I can have to bring one thing above all, and there's a couple of things that are very important, respect, femininity, but one thing above all is that comfort. That consult. What you mentioned, you come home at the end of the day, I put my head on your lap, you stroke my hair, and that's it. We don't even need to talk, just silence, just that. And a lot of women hear that, Sister Naima, and become triggered. What? Is that it? Is that all I am for? No. You are undermining it. We are not undermining it. This is so important to us. You see, we are better together than we are apart. The highest earning men in the world are all married. I know some of them recently divorced, but they're all married. We're better together than we are apart. And this is a really important, right up there. What was her response when Adam alayhi salam said to her, "Why were you created?" She said, "To console you." That comfort, that raha nafsiyah. We don't care about your money. We want to give to you. If you recall from the video reaction that I made of yours, men are givers, even in the physical sense, in the intimate sense. We are givers in every aspect of the word, and we want to give to you. What we ask for in return is we're not asking for much, but what we do ask for is important to us. That comfort, that nurturing, that softness, that peace, that raha nafsiyya. I'm finding it hard to find words.
No, 100%. And I think this is something that's the conversation is taking place outside of the Muslim community, but because our young people are so plugged into pop culture and to modern day conversations, that's why you're seeing these ideas spreading amongst the Muslim youth. This idea that I can force someone to like something about me because I like that thing about me, or to value something in me because I value that in me or in that person, right? So I think, there's a young sister, mashallah, who was very, she was very, very strong on social media. She had a degree. I think she had a master's as well, actually, mashallah. And she was involved in all the young people's discussions, like proper millennial, And she started to make changes. I won't mention her name, but I noticed the way she was moving. Firstly, she stopped showing her face on social media. Then she started to wear jilbab. Then she started wearing niqab. And now you don't see even her eyes on social media. And then I saw on her channel that she just got married. MashaAllah, tabarakallah, may Allah bless her. And the thing is, I was speaking to a friend of mine. I think you reacted to her video before, Layinka Sani. And I said to her, she did the smart thing,
About Layinka?
No, not her. No,
right.
We both know her, but I won't mention her name. But I said to Layinka, I said, she was smart. That was a smart move, because the way she was moving before, she would not have found the caliber of brother that she wanted, because she wanted somebody religious, right? And for a religious brother, he's not going to want to see his wife out there like that, right? You're not the kind of sister that he's going to approach, right? Of course, her DMs were full, just like my DMs are full. Like everybody's DMs are full. Who cares, right? those people are not serious. She wanted somebody, I think, who was someone she could respect, someone she could look up to, someone who she would trust to lead her and build a family with, right? And so the moves that she made, when I saw that she got married, I said that was a good move. I'm sure she did it for the sake of Allah and Allah blessed her, but that's the way that you need to move to get the outcome that you want. Because if you're out on social media doing the makeup tutorials, doing the hijab styles, I sisters, I'm Auntie G, like I'm Auntie Naima. I'm gonna tell you why are we doing this? Why are we wearing a scarf on our head, skin tight clothes to show the hourglass? Why? Why are we doing this? Why are we beating our faces and putting it on Instagram, right? Why are we doing this? Of course, there are the other ones who the husband is also there and involved in all the whole thing, right? I think you've talked about that before. But we need to realize that this is coming from our brokenness. It's not coming from our wholeness. It's not coming from a place of confidence like you think it is, because what is happening is you're being sucked into a vortex. And fil akhir, you're not going to get the result that you want, because the fact that you're still wearing a scarf, it shows me that you still have some Islam in you, and there is still a part of you that wants to be connected to the deen and connected to Allah. But how you're moving, that's a thirst trap. And you will only attract the brothers who are looking at you in that way. And they may fill your comments and they may fill your DMs, but they are not going to make you their wife, and they're not going to respect you as their wife. So we need to be careful of even how we move on social media as well, big time, because nowadays it's such a fitna, especially for the young people. I don't know how I got onto this topic. I think I digressed completely. My apologies.
No, it's important, and I'm glad you said that. Even you mentioned your DMs are full. This is an experience that men just can't relate to. Men, the average man, cannot relate to this, and he thinks that if I, slide into the sister's DM and sugar and spice and all things, like, no, bro, you're one of many. You're one of many. It's an experience a lot of brothers can't relate to. But this is a good segue into another, area I wanted to take this discussion, Sister Naima. And if you may, can you describe your late husband to us, rahimahullah, his qualities? Because you speak very highly of him. I just finished reading your book, mashallah. And those first 10 pages were extremely, extremely moving, extremely emotional. And can you just describe him to us in terms of his qualities and so on?
Subhanallah, Allah yarhamu. He was, as I said before, he was an alpha. So he was a guy who had a vision. He had a direction. He had a sense of purpose. He enjoyed a laugh and a joke. He wasn't particularly serious, but he was driven. Okay, that was, I think, the quality everybody knew. He was very generous and very friendly, but he was also very driven. He could be quite single-minded in that drivenness. And I can imagine if I had been another kind of woman, that would have weighed on me, because while he was building the business, he wasn't home for dinner with the kids every night. That just wasn't a possibility, right? He was in the office with the other brothers building this online business that was new. And my role was to, as I said, be the queen of the home, take care of the children. I think I had only one or two at the time, but make sure that they were being raised in the way that we both envisaged, right? So he had that side of him. On a personal level, he was a really good communicator, mashallah. He had a lot of respect for my opinions, but he also maintained frame. And I think that the whole issue of maintaining frame is something that I think a lot of men need to learn and understand. And I hope somehow my sons can learn that, is to have a frame as a man and to maintain frame, no matter what's happening around you, where you have a standard and you have kind of your boundaries, and people around you understand what those boundaries are. So he was able to, to set boundaries with me, not in a harsh way, not in a mean way, but in like, this is what it is. And even though I was very, if anyone's read From My Sister's Lips, you probably can see a little bit of my personality. I was very opinionated. I had a lot of things to say. I was very all over the place, but I respected him and I respected his vision. So when he set that boundary, I respected that boundary. I wasn't interested in going against that. And then as a father, he was that brother that would have his son with him in the masjid. you know, when I was going for an event with the sisters, he would have his children with him. And actually, my older children, they remember him a lot more because every weekend he was with them. Every weekend he was with them, doing the things that he felt were important, the things that he wanted to impart to them, you know, take them for tennis lessons, you know, establish their Quran lessons, you know, listen to Kitab al-Tawheed and all of this kind of thing. He was extremely hands-on the weekends, but in the week we hardly saw him because he was working. And the thing is, with him, obviously he had such big plans for the business and kind of where that would lead the family. So that's why kind of when I came in after he passed away, Allah yarhamu, you know, that business was able to set his children up for life, you know, and I don't say this to brag. I say this to acknowledge the rahmah that came with him. And if any of you men are able to ensure that if laqadr Allah takes your life, you have left something for your family. Because I remember one thing that he used to say to me was that, you know, sometimes brother will pass away and then they'll do like a round and they'll be collecting money to bury the brother. And he used to say to me, A'udhu billah, that anyone has that you ever have to ask people for money to bury me. For me, that's like I've failed as a man, right? That was his thing. So the fact that he was able to build something that now, mashallah, you know, I say this, you know, even though I'm the sole provider for these children, I'm not. Their father provided for them. Walillahi alhamd, you know, and you know, and I will never pretend that it was me, because it wasn't. If we were relying on me and I had to work and I run a business, alhamdulillah, but that money is for me because the children's money is taken care of. And that's a part of who he was and what he was building. So just an all-round gift that kept giving, really. Allah yarhamu. May Allah reward him. And,
that's beautiful, wallahi, that's beautiful. That's amazing. And you know, shortly afterwards you got married again. Am I correct in saying that?
yeah.
Are you still married now?
No.
You're not married now. I'm going to ask you a difficult question, Sister Naima. And that is it fair to say that in your view, in your perception, perhaps your second husband didn't measure up in your eyes to the standard your first husband had set, and that perhaps weighed on you?
Okay, I'm going to be honest. I don't like to say things like, oh, I'm not like other girls, right? Because I know that that's usually just a trope anyway. But in terms of the financial side, that was never a consideration. When I was considering brothers, I never looked for someone who was on the level of my late husband financially. That was never a thing. It wasn't necessary, and it also,
if he was a,
and it would have exactly, it would have been very difficult, and I wasn't interested in putting that standard on anybody. However, as I said before, if you are married to a powerful, resolute man, and you're the mother of his children, the way that your relationship will be, and the way that you as a pair, as a team, will run your home, will never be replicated. That is a fact. It will never be replicated. So, you know, maybe there was a part of me that compared maybe other aspects, but it would have been an unfair comparison if it was true, because there is no way that my second husband or even any other man could measure up to my late husband as a father, because they're not his kids. And this unit here, this woman and these children, it doesn't belong to you. It's another man's unit, right? And you have to try to fit in somehow. So it's like I said, people don't talk about it enough. It's really tough. You know, alhamdulillah, I'm grateful Allah blessed me with a good man the second time round. He was a good person. But you know, hey, chips fall as they may, and you know, it's not always forever at the end of the day. So may Allah bless him with the very best, and bless him with what he needs, and all of us. I mean,
have you read the book 48 Laws of Power?
I've heard a lot of talk about it, but I haven't read it.
Right. One of the laws of power in that book is never step into a great man's shoes. And the reason why is you'll have to work twice as hard to achieve half as much. And I don't know if you've done the math there, but that means you have to bring 4 times as much to the table just to
Yeah.
measure up. Because
Yeah.
why? Because first to market, he who does it first always gets the most credit.
Yeah.
Second to market, it's not quite the same. You're going to have to bring substantially
Mm.
more to the table. Now, you couple that with the fact that, and you see, it brings us on to an interesting dynamic now. Have you heard of the term alpha widow before?
Yeah.
Do you think you're an alpha widow?
Mm. No, I don't actually. I see why you could think that I am, um,
And you see,
but
this is not, there's no fault
yeah,
here. There's no
yeah, I
fault
don't think
involved
so.
here.
Mm.
You see, an alpha widow, for those who are wondering, is a woman who was with a man whom she deemed to be the best the best type of man that she could get, or he was the
Mm.
man basically,
Mm.
and either he left her or he passed away, one of the two, right?
Yeah,
But the general term was coined by Rollo Tomasi, alpha widow. That's what an alpha widow is,
yeah.
and now that's a standard. It's been set there. You see, now if you
Mm.
couple that with your unique situation, and again, may Allah make your late husband's grave spacious,
I mean,
and enter him into al-firdaus al-ala bighayri hisab. One of the interesting things, and lawyers talk about this a lot, whenever a lawyer is cross-examining a suspect or someone in the box, lawyers are acutely aware of when to stop talking. This
mm.
is very important in law. Why? Because they have to convince the jury. They're not here trying to convince the person in the box. They need to convince the jury of their point. And the best way to leave a lasting impression on the jury is to stop at a climax, at a peak. Okay?
Mm.
If you can stop at a peak, people have short memories. They only
Mm.
remember what you said last. If you can stop at a climax in your cross,
Mm.
that's the moment that you've left in their minds, and it
Yeah,
crystallizes.
yeah.
It crystallizes and perpetuates as well. It's
Mm.
one of the reasons why I believe that when it's all said and done, I believe Khabib will most probably be viewed as one of the greatest athletes of all time, if not the greatest. Even more, his legend will be even bigger than Muhammad Ali. Why?
Mm.
And I'd say after he dies, not now. Well, because he
Mm.
didn't lose and he won so dominant.
Right.
And
Yeah,
now
yeah,
he's
yeah, yeah.
tired on that climax. You
Yeah,
see, the
yeah.
last thing people remember is Khabib
Mm.
beat everyone. If he
Yeah,
dies tomorrow or whenever he eventually dies, that legend will perpetuate and build.
sure. Yeah.
Now, the way I see your case, because your husband, Allah Mubarak, those are some seriously big boots to fill. And
Yeah.
now, see, he's up there. Now, he passed away whilst
Yeah.
he had those big boots on. Allah Mubarak,
Yeah.
you know?
Alhamdulillah.
May Allah reward him. But
I mean,
those boots, that image is now a crystallized image. Let's take it away from you so we can make it a bit less personal. How would a man approaching a sister
mm.
like that, who she was with a brother who, mashallah, had these big old boots on, how would
Mm.
he approach a sister like that in your view?
I don't know how much of this is subconscious, you see. And that's important because the woman could say, this is the man I had, Alhamdulillah, I'm grateful for him, etc., etc. But I'm not looking for that again, right? I don't expect to find it and I'm not looking for it. She could say that and she could mean it. I don't know whether subconsciously, though, that would always be the standard, right? And so I can't say, even if she believes, because certainly for me, I was not out looking for a replica. It just didn't make any sense, right? However, maybe subconsciously there was something there that meant that that's what I consider. In fact, no, there was something there. There were certain traits, maybe not the traits that your audience is thinking, the money and stuff like that, but there were certain traits that for me are now my standard. That's what I see as a real man. That
Right.
is what a real man does,
I
right?
got you. I
And
got you.
so if somebody else comes along and they don't tick those particular boxes where you consider that is a real man, it's tough. It's
It's very
tough.
hard.
So to answer your question, I would say have the conversation, right? But even if she says it, even if she means it, subconsciously there just could be that chance where one day she just looks at you and she's like, you don't measure up. So I can understand if a brother says, that was your husband? I'm not touching that. I'm not going there, you know? You imagine, I don't know who you want to, Habib's wife, for example. Do you think a lot of, if he died, do you think a lot of men would be stepping to her?
Those are some big old boots.
I don't know what he was like as a husband, but there are just certain people that you just think, you know what, I don't want to be compared to that. I don't need that kind of stress in my life. The woman is not worth it. She's not worth the stress that I will have living in this man's shadow. So you as a woman, sis, and this is something that I've come to kind of to believe of late, is that we like to think that there will always be somebody in your life who will love you and protect you and look after you and all of that, right? So if you lose one, find another. And if it doesn't work out with that one, you find another and you find another and whatever, right? To perpetuity. But then I think at a certain point, you just say, you know what? I've had a good run. Alhamdulillah, like I've had a good run. I had my 10-year relationship. I had my 15-year relationship. I had my marriage. I had my love affair, whatever it is, yeah? And I'm good. And if I don't get anything like that again, it's okay, because this life is just a test at the end of the day, and life's short, right? So I think so many of us are chasing something, and sometimes the key is really just to appreciate what you have and stop chasing. And if it doesn't come your way and you're like, I don't know, again, it's such a personal thing, because if a person really, really wants to be married, who are you to tell them, sit down and be happy with your lot, right?
Right.
But for me, I just think that, yeah, it's good. It's good. Alhamdulillah. Like, it's yani, khalas. Alhamdulillah.
Now, this has been a really good conversation, Sister Naima. Before we conclude, though, do you have any questions you'd like to ask me? You're welcome to put me on the spot.
Put you on the spot. Right. I think that the pushing young men to excel and to better themselves and to just to become better versions of themselves, I think tuhfa, yeah, the best thing that they could be doing right now is really building themselves up, inshallah. I do think, however, that we need to be careful of not falling into the traps that the red pill community is not aware of, because they don't have iman and they don't have deen. And I'll tell you what I mean by that.
Yes, please do.
In the red pill community, everything's about being an alpha, this and that. I get it. But for us as Muslims, and just in general, Ryan Stone, if you don't know him, check him out. He's got a really interesting take on all of this red pill stuff. He's a veteran from back when they were on Reddit. But he talks about the alpha and beta that is in all men, right? And he talks about the alpha qualities of a man, which are the dominance, the ambition, the strength, the force, and all of that. And so the chasing. Those alpha qualities are what produce the dopamine in the woman, right? She's attracted to those qualities, right? It's a bit dangerous, it's a bit risky, it's a bit like uncertain, it's adventure, right? That's the alpha. And then he talks about the beta qualities of a man, which is the comfort, the protection, the security, the safety, produces the oxytocin, right? So you've got the dopamine, which is the high, which is the rush, and then the oxytocin, which is like the settling and the safety and the cozy feelings, right? The comfort, okay? And now a man has typically both. He has the ability to have, both of those effects on his woman. And when you look at the Prophet ﷺ, you see that he embodied both.
Sahih.
So he was not the alpha that these guys talk about, who was ego, and like, it's all about me and forcing things and it's my way and dominance. He had spaces where he did that and he excelled in those spaces, which is why he was the leader of the Muslims, right? When he showed strength, when he showed resolve, when he showed determination, when he was ruthless, right? That's all alpha. But you see in the hadith literature that he had the beta qualities as well. And he knew how to be humble. He knew how to be kind. He knew how to be respectful. He knew how to make people feel comfortable and safe. especially his wives. So I think some of the red pill conversation, obviously they don't have deen, they don't have the wasata, right? They don't have the mizan that we have. So I think for our brothers, allowing them to see the holistic nature of masculinity in the deen, rather than getting them too fired up on the alpha conversations, because too much alpha, you break your relationship. That's the bottom
Well, it's
line.
interesting that you
What I'm
say
saying?
that, because there's a book called Mode One by Alan Roger Curry. Now, this book, gentlemen, it's a pure pickup artistry book, yeah, for haram, for zina, and all of that. However, I read very broadly, and he spoke about some interesting things, and he mentioned what you just mentioned there right now. He said there's 4 different types of men. You have the pure alpha, then you have the alpha with beta tendencies, and then you have the beta with alpha tendencies, and then you have the pure beta. He said that the type that women are most attracted to settle down with, both from a perspective of physical intimacy and then settling down and him taking care of her, is the alpha with beta tendencies. Now, the pure alpha, he's fetishized, if you like. But
he's the Chad.
Right. But
the
women,
Giga Chad.
The Giga Chad. But women don't typically want to settle down with him. They know he's the hot guy, as Rich Cooper would say, from the foam cannon party.
He won't settle with them. He won't settle down with them. Yeah. If they could catch him, they would love to, because they think he's a catch. But they don't realize that the qualities that attracted him and made him hot in a relationship, they can't handle it.
Right. So that's an important point there. Those qualities that made him hot, they work because he is totally like out of control, right? Some characters come to mind. I'm not going to name people, but some characters come to my mind who are just pure alpha. But the problem is those individuals don't necessarily make good partners. Part of being a Muslim husband is providing for your wife, right? That's the beta aspect of masculinity, if you like, providing her with that safe space. And the beauty of providing a safe space for your wife, providing for her and so on, is that a man provides that safe space for a woman to flourish in her femininity. You see, once she is taken care of, she can flourish in her own femininity. So I hear what you're saying. You correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like you're saying to provide that insight as well. That not just talking about the alpha this and alpha. I hate this word, by the way. Alpha, I think, is so cringy. But for the purpose
overused.
But for the purpose of this, is that what you're saying? To give a different insight there?
Yeah, I think that just as we do with all things, take the good and leave the stuff that doesn't serve us, and let's always go back to the seerah. Let's always go back to the seerah, because the seerah has the balance. The seerah is what balances everything out. When you see people living the deen, when they were actually living it and it was a reality for them, that is a healthier dynamic for us to aspire to, than, to be frank, sort of plugging into a lot of the toxic narratives that are taking place in a society that unfortunately we are a part of, right? And we don't want to kind of swing our pendulum so far that we actually swing away from the example of the Prophet ﷺ, and end up in being, sort of something else. We have the model. So that model, mashallah, tabarakallah, like that model is a banging model, and yes, we can break it down into the alpha and the beta and the all the things, right? But that should be our model. I think that's my main thing. It's just, when you're teaching, like, I'll give you an example. Sorry to go on a bit, but I would hate to see a return, or even just the presence of sort of casual sexism in our conversations amongst Muslim men or Muslim women. One of your commenters said, "Oh, the first mistake you made as a woman was thinking that anyone cares about your opinion." Okay, interesting. Is that based on something Islamic? Is the manners of it, the vibe behind it? Women, all they're good for is X, Y, Z. That type of thing. Get in the kitchen. It's just casual sexism, right? And maybe it's a joke. Maybe it's funny. But I don't think it's necessary. And I think that
I'll speak for that, because you guys have seen my videos in the past. You see, there's a fine line between leading as a man and doing what you need to do to lead the household, and then completely disregarding your wife. And I've mentioned this in my videos in the past. For those of you who have watched me, my wife, she often provides me with angles that I never actually saw, especially when I'm like, so sometimes I do a post-mortem on my conversations that I have with people. What did I miss? What could I have added, and so on. And my wife often gives me an angle that I didn't necessarily see, right? Now, this is great. There's nothing wrong with that. And I shouldn't be so proud as to accept this from her. MashaAllah, that's a good point. Give her credit where it's due. The problem is when men follow what women ask from them to the T.
Yeah.
You want to make a woman miserable? Do everything she asks.
I know. Yeah, exactly. And this is why frame matters so much. This is why frame matters, because if your whole relationship is based on you pleasing your wife, pandering to her, giving her everything she wants, doing everything the way she thinks it should be done, while it may give her, like a boost in the moment, what it usually ends up leading to is her feeling entitled, right? And I'm a woman, and I know that an entitled woman is a pain in the backside, right? Just like an entitled anyone is a pain in the backside, right? But especially an entitled woman who feels like this whole show should be on my terms. Otherwise, X, Y, Z. This is when we start to weaponize certain things, and I mean, there's so many more things we can talk about in the realm of like, male-female dynamics or husband and wives, etc. But, just maintaining frame and understanding that, okay, this is the relationship that we have. It is, I respect you, I love you, and I'm here for you, but this is a red line and this is a boundary, okay? And this is what I will accept from you. If you can vibe with that, we're going to get along just fine. If you can't vibe with that, there's a consequence. We need to have a conversation like that, and you need to know that I'm serious about this, and you need to respect what I'm saying. Even you won't even have that conversation with her, I hope, but it helps to have these conversations before the marriage, right? So I think you did a video the other day about the brother who said that the wife was the fiance, whoever, was very argumentative, and again, that's a red flag. It's a red flag, because if you are that man who wants to lead the household and you have the credentials to lead the household, you've got the money, you've got a good head on your shoulders, you've got a vision, then for sure, a woman who's not prepared to get on your program, that's not your wife. You'll find another one who will get on your program very nicely and live that kept woman lifestyle that is lit, okay? And she will do amazingly within that space, And I can say, for the people who think that, oh, I'm a self-made woman or whatever, I'm not a self-made woman. The reason I have published over 25 books, the reason I was able to run Sisters Magazine for 10 years and all of that stuff, firstly, I did it all from home. Secondly, I did it all while I was raising my children. And thirdly, if my husband had not been providing for the family and had not been my moral support throughout the whole thing, I would not have been able to do it. And that is facts. So even with Sisters Magazine, at a certain point, he stepped in and his company took over certain parts of the logistics because he believed in what we were doing. He thought it was a good thing for the ummah and he invested in it. So all the reward for these things, he's going to get it, inshallah. Allah yarhamu. So don't ever buy this whole strong woman, blah, blah, blah stuff, okay? Because everyone's got a story behind them, and it's not always what it looks like from the front. So I just want people to know that.
I mean, I'm going to go back to what you were saying about, I can't remember the exact words you used, but with regards to, having the final say and so on and so forth, those types of things. Look, to the sisters, if you're going to pick a husband to be your husband, you have to understand you're choosing a leader. Sometimes leaders of countries, of companies, of households make mistakes. If we have chosen them to lead us, you just have to accept it. But if he's a decent leader, right? We pick presidents because we hope that their past credentials have indicated that their future decision making will, for the most part, be good. Then don't get too hung up. And like with my wife knows, Sister Naima, I'm not going to cap now. Like, I have the final say in my house. We'll have a discussion, but if she doesn't agree, frankly, it doesn't matter. And usually I'm right. Sometimes I'm wrong. And if I was wrong, I'll hold my hands up. But my wife understands that if she doesn't see eye to eye with what I am saying, ultimately, I have to trust him. Because I chose him to be in the first place. And that's something that is very hard for a lot of women. And this is why I say strong and independent. Strength is not being for a woman. It's not being independent. Strength is in submission. It's being dependent upon him to make the right shots and the right calls for your family. That's so much harder than doing your own thing. Why? Because this strong and independent vibe is coming from a position of lack, fear, scarcity. I'm scared. It's coming from a place of lack, you see. Whereas submitting, I know a lot of sisters take issue with this word, but it's exactly what it is.
It's a trigger word for a lot of people. I remember, when we had this, we had a fiqh Q&A at a festival I did last year. And I had an imam from a masjid in South London, and we were talking about, I think it was relationship fiqh, was marriage fiqh or whatever. And he dared to use the S word. Oh my goodness. The chat went absolutely crazy because it was a lot of millennials in there, a lot of these young women who kind of, educated and everything. And it's a tough word. It's a tough pill to swallow if you've grown up in this culture. But hey, it is what it is. And I'll tell you what was a big light bulb moment for me. And I had this chat with, guess who? Not just Layinka Sani, but Alia Rayyan from Honest Tea Talk. Right. And we had a gathering one time before I left the country. We had a gathering and we were talking about Kevin Samuels. She brought up Kevin Samuels, right? We were talking about the whole thing of not this whole, stop using words like settling, making a deal and whatever. We were having all this conversation. And she brought up this, what's this now? I've lost my train of thought. I was saying light bulb moment. What did you just mention? Submission. Yes. This idea that it's not just a Muslim man thing to want a submissive wife. Yes. It's actually non-Muslims as well. Like, who knew? And I was saying to her, for me, that was like a huge, what? I thought non-Muslim men were cool. Like, I thought they liked a woman who was feisty and had something to say for herself and, gave them a bit of pushback and whatever. Next thing you know, all these guys, Rolo Tomasi, all of these people got no deen whatsoever, not even religious. And they're saying, does she submit? Even Corey Wayne talks about submissive. And that was a huge thing for us to see, because then it was like, hold on, this is not just like a male Muslim cultural thing. This is more like a male thing.
Yeah. Yeah, 100. And you see, what does it come down to? What does a woman submitting, trusting her husband, accepting with the direction that he's going, what does it communicate? It communicates 3 words, Sister Naima. I trust you.
Yeah.
And this is like oxygen to a man. When you tell a man, I trust you, this is very empowering to him, even if he's not the most competent leader in the world. Like, obviously, most men are not great leaders. Otherwise, they would all be presidents of countries and so on. However, when you trust him, this empowers him to make the right decision. And guess what? He's going to make mistakes. And when he makes a mistake, that's the time for the leader to hold his hands up and say, you know what? I made a mistake. But that strength comes not from fighting him. It comes from submission. You want to, okay, fine. You want to have your way. That's fine. You can have your opinion. You can have that, and you can be single with it. You see, because most men are not going to tolerate this, especially a man who is, quite. How else can I say it? He's quite masculine. He has.
Alpha.
Right, he's quite. He's just not have it. He's not going to deal with it. He's not going to deal with it. And understand that he's not doing this to oppress. Us men, we want to give to women. That's what we want to do. We want to build these huge empires and go to Mars. And why? For what? For women. I don't care what any man says. No, you're doing it for women. That drive is a sexual drive. It comes from the sexual urge. It's what's propelling you forward. Take away, get yourself castrated and find out how much ambition you have.
That's true. It's testosterone, isn't it? Right. It's testosterone. I've got a question for you when you're finished, actually.
No, I'm done. Totally.
I would like to know 2 questions I have. 1, do you think that sisters should marry for potential? That's the first thing. And second, the Kevin Samuels clip that went viral, your average at best.
Right.
Do you think that sisters need to be more realistic about their value on the marketplace, right? And if so, if they are any of the things, they've been married before, they've had children, they can't have more children, they're older, whatever the case may be, they're overweight, whatever the case may be, how do you think that should impact their choices? Do you think they should settle? If they are settling, what should they settle for? That's 3 questions, but yeah.
Okay. What was the first question?
The first question was, should you marry for potential?
Should you marry for potential? okay, let's establish a foundation, and that foundation is this, sisters. Most human beings are average. Okay,
This
I
is
know you
true.
want to marry a man who's
Important.
going to become
Yeah.
very, mashallah, CEO, marshal, all of this stuff. Great, but most men are going to end up in that large swath of men in the middle who
True.
are average.
Yeah.
That's normal. If
Sister's
everyone,
probably average herself. She's probably
right,
average herself.
just if everyone was excellent, nobody would be excellent. If everyone was super, no one would be super. You see? So even if you marry a brother for potential, his maxing out of his potential might be stable job, £40,000 a year. Like maybe that's his potential, and he's happy. Just he's not very particularly ambitious, and he does his 9 to 5. You do want to add something?
I just want to say that is that lack of ambition and drive. I've heard so many women complain about that. So many women complain that their husbands are happy as they are, which is weird, right? Because the husband is like, I'm good. I'm providing for my family. His tick box is like 1, 2, 3. I'm happy in my house. I'm providing for my family. My marriage is okay. That's it. I'm good. Whereas, as I said to you last time, the hierarchy of needs, the woman is like, no, let's get to the next level. And he's looking at her like, what next level? Why? And that is a problem. It's causing problems in marriages.
I'll speak to that. I can't relate to those men personally. And my page is aimed at men who are on a mission to go to themselves. Okay, so I can't relate to those men. However, I am not foolish to think that most men think like that. No, most men are quite, alhamdulillah, happy with their average lives. What the sister has to understand is this. Okay, that might make you unhappy, but you need to understand something. Let's say you do decide to pull the plug on him because you find this to be unattractive. What type of brother are you now going to be able to attract? You see? But that might not be appealing to you, but sister, do you, and you mentioned the word settle, and we're going to come to that now. Let's address that. So repeat the question, the settling question to me. Should she aim high or should she settle?
No. It wasn't should she aim high. Do you advise sisters to settle if they're not at their peak value in the marketplace? Guys, don't get triggered by the value, by the language, because that's all it is. It's just language. Okay, it is a marketplace. Nobody is falling in love with your personality. They're swiping left and swiping right, and they're looking at criteria. It's all it is. Okay, so if you're not at your peak, you're not early 20s, blah blah blah. Do you advise sisters to settle, quote unquote, and what aspects should they settle on? Are there some things it's okay to settle for, and some things it's like, no, don't settle on this issue? What are your thoughts on that?
So to be clear, just so we can give a frame to this particular sister, we're talking about a sister who perhaps she's in her 30s or 40s, maybe she's got a couple of kids from a previous marriage. Is that the type of sister we're talking about? Okay.
Yes.
She's not settling. She doesn't qualify in the first place.
Oh.
That's the answer.
Okay.
You see, that type of man that you're looking for, that exceptional man, he's a 6-figure earner, 6 foot, 6 sixes, right? Sister, you're not settling. You just don't qualify in the first place. That the type of brother you do qualify for, and believe me, he'll take you like this, because brothers are struggling to get married now. The average everyday brother, he's struggling to get married. That's the brother you qualify for. You're not settling. It's not a settle. That's what you qualify for. Does that answer your question?
Wow. Okay. Yeah, it does. So, all right. Okay, first, 2 more questions. One, do you really think that sisters in general, and maybe the people in the audience can tell us, do you feel that sisters on the marriage apps and everything have the same type of delusions as the women who ring Chaos's channel, for example? Even that 666. Are Muslims really looking for a 6-figure earner, and he has to have this and he has to have that, like in that way?
This is a great question. You see, I used to believe that until I started having these sisters coming onto my stream, coming onto my channel. Just the other day, for example, we had a young sister come on. I'm going to keep her anonymous, but she did come on with her name. She's 20 years old, never been married before. She's in her prime. I don't know what she looks like because she was wearing a niqab, but al-muhim, she's young and she's never been married before. She doesn't have children, so she'd be desirable to a large demographic of women, of men, right? Okay. I said to the sister, what's your expectation from a man? She said, what do you mean? I said, well, let's start off with mahr. How much mahr do you want? And she said to me, I'll be happy with £500, £1,000. That was her response. I said, okay. I
I
wasn't
remember her.
expecting
Yeah,
that.
I've seen it.
And then I said, what about earnings? She said, I don't know, 25,000, 26,000 pound a year. So I do believe that the likes of Fresh and Fit, the likes of Kevin Samuels, they're dealing with a particular demographic of women.
Demographic.
Fresh and Fit are dealing with girls from Miami. Miami is just hypergamy on steroids. And Kevin Samuels, his demographic is ratchet. That's his demographic, ratchet women. Now, have our sisters been affected? Yes, I believe to a point. To a point. Has it been affected as much as you see on the likes of Kevin Samuels' channels? I don't know. I don't. I would have said yes were it not for the fact that I started having these conversations with these sisters, and they seem to be a little more level-headed, a little more realistic. That's my answer.
Yeah. I think that you may find that the older the sisters get, the higher their expectations. Because
Very
I
good.
know if I was 20 or 21 or 22, I mean, I had a mahar, it was Ulay al and I was happy to live in a basement flat in Brixton. When my husband bought me a car, like after a few years, I was like, I thought I was the luckiest girl in the world, But obviously it's a different time. So I hear that. And nowadays, the whole lifestyle stuff on social media has got a lot of people's heads spinning. They do think that, it should be about the Gucci and the Louboutins and stuff like that. However, I think a young girl who's like fresh out of school, fresh out of uni even, or maybe just in uni, her expectations compared to a sister who's finished uni, who has a master's, who has a well-paid job, who's bought her house, who owns her own car, that sister, her expectations, and this is the paradox, because really, if you're looking at the marketplace, the young sister is the one who has the right or could get away with demanding the half of the world, right? Because she's in demand. Whereas the one who's in her mid-30s, unfortunately, she's not necessarily in a great bargaining space to have this long list of requirements, because unfortunately, this is the problem we're finding. The sister who's a doctor, who owns her own house, who has her own car, how can she marry the average brother? Who would take her? You know what I mean? Who would take her? He would take her. He's happy to take her and move into her house. So
this goes back to what you said earlier, which was okay, there's two things that can happen here. The first scenario A is a woman, she's not gotten married, but she's in her 30s, she's highly educated, she's got a good job and so on. Now her expectation is higher. Why? Because she's higher, right?
Yep.
That's the first scenario. The second
and I can't marry someone below me, and he has to be better than me. He has to earn more than me. That is a Kevin Samuels conversation. And our sisters are having that conversation by the time they get old enough. By the time they've got enough equity, they are having the exact same conversations. I'm sorry I interrupted you. Please carry on.
No worries. And let me just, because I don't want to lose this super chat. Hey, my man, I appreciate my men's community. Thank you very much for the 140 bucks super chat. Shout out to you, brother. I appreciate it, Akhi. He's in my men's community as well. The second scenario, Sister Naima, and this is a very strange paradoxical thing that happens, but it happens anyway. And that is a sister who gets married, has a couple of kids, gets divorced, realizes after her divorce, I should have asked for A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Now she goes back out into the marriage marketplace and she says, now I know what I want. And I demand A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Whilst she is in a more disadvantageous position than when she was young. Not to say that she should have made such demands when she was young. I'm just highlighting the point that she was more likely to get it, you see. And I understand why this point grates on women, because a woman hears this and says, so what are you telling me? There is nothing I can do to increase my sexual market value, because you are essentially telling me that my sexual market value is intricately tied to my youth, beauty, femininity, youth and beauty primarily. The other things you can control a little bit, but youth and beauty is out of your control. How can I control that?
Yeah.
And the answer is yes. It's something you can't control. It is what it is. Just as men have to deal with the unsavory reality that if you are not a financially viable prospect, you are going to struggle to convince most fathers to part ways with their daughter. That's unsavory, but it is what it is. But you see, now men can control this. He can go out and become, and then, he's not broke anymore, right? Women, on the other hand, they can't control it. And that's why it pees so many women off. Because you're telling me that this is something out of my control. Don't shoot the messenger. It is what it is. You can't change the hard wiring in a man's brain. It is what it is.
I think it is. It is what it is. It is what it is. But again, we go back to the idea that there are some men who don't have those options, right? They
Right.
are men who don't have the pick of the bunch.
No,
Now,
no,
the
there are
unfortunate
many men. There
problem,
are many men,
there
Sister
are many,
Naima.
right? Many men, right? Many men,
Yes.
and they would be happy to be with you, even though you're not a 20-year-old, right? And they will
He
accept
would
even
be.
with your
He
children.
would
Yes, he
be,
would.
Naima, but she doesn't want him.
I know,
You
I
see?
know. That's
That's
why
the
I said
dilemma.
cut a deal. You have to decide what you want. What's more important to you, your list or being married? Sometimes you won't get the list and the marriage. And if you're past a certain stage in your life, that list could be the thing that's stopping you from getting married. So you just have to ask yourself, what is it that I really want? My list of expectations or a relationship?
You see,
However that looks for you, however you can make it work.
oftentimes you will find that women would rather die single than marry someone that she feels she had to settle for. And that's why she'd rather be single than flipping marry a guy who she feels
Yeah.
is subpar. Because like, nah, forget
Yeah.
that. But that's why when you asked me, should a woman who, she's 30 plus, maybe she's been married before, maybe she's got a couple of kids, should she settle? That's why I answered quite succinctly, she's not settling. That's not a settle. You see, all of this, because you mentioned briefly in our conversation the other day, when a woman starts doing personal development and, suddenly she starts thinking, maybe I can do better. We don't give a damn. We don't care. Personal development, no personal development. Are you nice? Are you fit, friendly, feminine, sort of all the rest of it? That's it. Be nice to me. Wallahi, you want to summarize it in 3 words? 4. Be nice to me. Be nice to me.
Yeah.
That's it. Now, obviously, the older a sister gets, she can work on all of those things and that will help her for sure. But it's unlikely she's going to get that top tier man that every other woman is chasing. You see, the sad reality here is the girl who works in McDonald's who does no personal development, she's doesn't have a degree. If she's nice, and I say this is important, if she's horrible, I'm sorry, I don't care how beautiful you are, we're not interested, right? But if she's nice and she's pleasant, she has a big advantage on a sister who's older. And it just that's the game. It is what it is.
No doubt.
This has been excellent. Do you have any other questions before we conclude this?
No, I think in terms of the last point was in terms of things that are okay to put to the side. What are those things? Because when I did my video, when I said not to settle, I think I may have used the word settle, but what I meant was your standard should be with regards to the person's character. And that standard you have to have standards for the people you let into your life, right? This is a man that if you're going to be in a relationship with him, he's going to come into your life, you need to maintain your standards. That's what I was saying, raise your standards was one of the other videos, right? But it wasn't standards with regards to money or looks or power or prestige or anything like that. It was literally your standards of how you will be treated and how you will treat others. So what is it okay? And what negotiables? Like no sister should agree to marry a man who X, Y, Z. From your point of view.
You cut out briefly. Can you repeat it again, please?
If you were to complete this sentence, no sister should consider marrying a brother ... who does what, who is what. No sister, not even if she's 50, not even if she's a grandmother, not even if she's overweight, nothing. That she should never consider marrying a brother who is X, Y, Z. What would those things be for you?
Okay, it's a difficult question, so I'm not going to pigeonhole myself into a single sentence, but I will say this. The brother has to show that he wants to do his manly duty, that he's not a leech. He wants to take care of her. He wants to provide for her. He wants to give her that safe space to the best of his ability. Now, he might not be able to provide her with the lifestyle that she's looking for, but so long as he is providing and he is showing that he's trying to improve his situation, especially if the situation is below where it should be, to the brothers watching right now. If your situation is below where it should be, bro, you need to be striving, right? You need to be moving forward. So long as he shows her that he wants to give, that's the bottom line. He wants to give, then alhamdulillah. Do you understand?
Okay.
Because I have heard of some brothers who don't want to give, and this is a big problem. Like a lot of brothers, a lot of people in the Black Pill community, for example, have take issue with this. Oh, women just want us for our resources. Yes, get with the program, bro. You're a battery. You're a
Yeah.
battery to be used. If you cannot be, and Kevin Samuelson said,
Yeah.
well, shout out to him. If you cannot be used, you are useless. You should be usable.
Yeah.
Right? Equally, what do we want women for? Unflattering reality. We want the main part, comfort, physical intimacy. Comfort, physical intimacy. Everything else is a bonus. Everything else is a bonus. Comfort, physical intimacy. Wabas. A man can be, mashallah, handsome and all the rest of it. If he's not providing, it's hard for a woman to respect a man like that. It's like, okay, you look good and you got a six-pack and you're 6'6" and all the rest of it, but like, fam, you're a bum. You're not even trying to change your situation. What's going on? Do you see? So when it comes down to it, honestly, what we provide to each other are simple things. This whole love love is conditional. We love each other conditionally. The only people we love unconditionally are our children. And even then, subhanAllah, sometimes it reaches a point. Nuh alayhi salam had to turn his back on his son. Lut alayhi salam had to turn his back on his wife. It is what it is. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, but the interesting thing is it's still down to resources. It's still down to money. I don't agree with you 100% on that, but I know that that's your position, that a man must provide, right? So that's interesting for sisters to kind of have that as a benchmark.
Let me be clear on that. What I mean by that is he doesn't have to have tons of money. He has to show that he wants to give and that he has a plan in place to make that happen. You see? Obviously, his character needs to be on point. His salah, he's taking care of the wajibat, all of that good stuff. But he needs to want to fulfill his manly roles, those traditional gendered roles. That's what I'm talking about. And hopefully he will be able to garner the respect of his woman. The issue is a lot of women are not happy with that average, that average brother bringing his average self to the table. So that's my take on it. Wallahu a'lam. That's my take on it. Sister Naima, this has been an absolute pleasure. Jazakumullah khair. Do you have any plugs anywhere, any socials, anything you want to shout out at all?
I'm on Naima B. Robert on all socials. Don't follow me on Facebook. I don't like that place anymore at all. Because really, this thing of sliding in DMs, my brothers who are here, I was showing my son my messenger on my main Facebook, like the Facebook page. It literally is, Assalamu alaikum. Are you married? Assalamu alaikum. You're beautiful. Assalamu alaikum. Are you married? Assalamu alaikum. I love you. I'm like, what are you doing? What are you guys doing? So Naima B. Robert on all socials. And it's been a pleasure to be here. Barakallahu feekum.
Likewise, and I know you're tight with Sister Layinka, and I give an open invitation to Sister Layinka to come on. I know I've done a reaction video to one of her videos in the past, and it was about emoting and the different ways of emoting, how men should emote and women should emote. I openly invite her, inshallah ta'ala, and we can have that discussion. As for me, you guys know where you can find me. You know my stuff. Jazakumullah khair. Sister Naima will chop it up backstage in a second, inshallah. Jazakumullah khair to the rest of you. Thank you to all of you for the super chats. Wallahi barakallahu fikum. Take care. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.